for you. Freedom!
Keep your ears to the ground.
Talking about the freedom!
It's the best show in town.
Let's show it down. Freedom! Freedom!
It's time to take control of your journey towards chess mastery. Magnus Carlsen introduces Chessable, the definitive solution for studying chess. Move Trainer uses the science of spaced repetition to identify your strengths and eliminate your weaknesses. There's no need to set up a board, remember which page you're on, or keep track of all the moves you miss. Move Trainer empowers you to go from the opening to the end game with confidence. It's a seamless, effective, and fun way to study chess. Choose from one of the largest online chess libraries in the world, with hundreds of titles ranging from classic books through to our exclusive Chessable courses, including over 100 free courses. Get expert insights from International Master John Bartholomew, Grandmaster Sam Shankland, International Master Christoph Sulecki, Grandmaster Simon Williams, World Champion Magnus Carlsen, and hundreds of other instructors. Get started now and join our growing community of over 100,000 chess enthusiasts at chessable.com. Chessable, take control of your journey towards chess mastery.
Okay, I'm ready. I am supposed to checkmate black. Okay, I know that queen could go here, but then, the knight. The black knight can stop me if I go here. Okay, so I'm gonna go here. Yay! I got it. All right, this is easy. Next one. White to play and win. Okay. Well, I can go here. Oh. Something with the knight. I know it's something with the knight, but I can't take this. Oh, why didn't I do that? Magnus Carlsen, Sergei Karyak in New York, 2016. I was in New York when he played this game. I should know what he did. I should know what he did. Okay, I'm just gonna go for queen here. Needs to be something with the queen. Queen goes here, then king can take the queen. What other pieces do I have? I also, I'm gonna try the queen here. And I did it! Yay! I'm just as good as the world champion Magnus Carlsen. That's the feeling I have anyway. I'm gonna study on Chessable every day.
And queen takes f3. Oh, what is going on? Oh, this is going to be a fortress. I just don't see any hopes at all. This is very easy. Just rook back and forth.
Taking chess to the next level.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, yeah. Nothing else to say. Wow.
Creating the future of the sport. Introducing the Champions Chess Tour. 10 months, 10 tournaments. The world's best players online and on TV.
Nice little username there in Fisher Firuzia. The third best and 136th best player of all time.
Yeah, let's take some other challenge here. Ocean Storm is a Grandmaster. Let's not exaggerate, guys. We just started. Let's not take Grandmaster. Let's take someone with a random account, with a random name that just seems attractive. D4, Knight f6.
Yeah, stop playing with my rating, guys. That's becoming a bit embarrassing. I mean, what is this stream if not an opportunity for my mods to roast me? Like, there's really no other reason for me to stream apart from that.
Bishop 3. Rook a2 back. Yeah, I'm not going to accept a draw, of course. We're not in the charity business here.
And a queen check comes. Another queen check. Okay, now you are pre-moving. This is very smart, but I can also pre-move a mate in 2. Okay, thank you for the game, and it wasn't rated. I mean, okay, I'm done. So sorry, guys. I'm not going to Banter anymore. This wasn't rated. This was freaking unrated. No, I mean, okay. Most chickenish way to play. I mean. Unrated. I'm amazed. I'm just amazed. Okay, if anyone can replace me in this Banter, sorry. Okay, let's play against Julia Brazil. It's 3+2, but this will be my revenge, so I'll make this game last forever.
Ay. Such a beast. Yeah, okay, this is pointless. Okay. Good game. What were we saying? There. Okay.
Let's briefly see if Frenchman has challenged me. It's hard to find. Probably should go to his account and see. Ooh, H6, H3. Hello, G5. Didn't see it coming, eh? Mate? Who's funny now, eh, Harry Giri? Oh, Knight H2, like this. Knight H2. Please don't hit me. Oh, don't hit me. Boom.
You don't accept my challenge.
Okay, I'll accept. I didn't see a challenge.
You're too afraid.
I'm not afraid. I didn't see your challenge. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can you go, please? I'm shy.
I'm
can you
gonna
please
sit next to you.
No, can you
while
please
you're
go?
playing.
No, please. Can you go somewhere else?
Okay, no Frenchman. Next is me.
Yeah. Okay.
And you challenge.
Okay. No Frenchman. Being tossed around here by my wife.
Hello, Miss Tactics. Hello there. So, Pico, we gotta play before my manager is back in the office. Ooh. That's, I think your manager should understand and challenge me as well.
I've also been told many a time, Jan, just fix the shit. stop asking the audience if they can hear or see you. And also, stop cursing. I believe that type of feedback has been given to me more than once, probably like thrice.
And we are back. It's the final day of the preliminaries of the Airthings Masters. At the end of the day, 4 players, it's judgment day for them. We'll have to say goodbye to them. It's going to be only the top 8 who continue the race. Take a look at the format of the event. We're in the round robin stages, and we're going to move on to the knockout stages, which starts with the quarterfinals and beyond. Every game is a rapid game, 15 minutes with a 10-second increment. In the knockout stages, it moves on to match play with 2 sets each. Today is the final day of the each play each portion of the Airthings Masters. Now, the tension is high, the stakes are high, and the competition is fierce. But some players are feeling it more than the others. Because take a look at the standings. At the top of the table, Daniel Dubov, Hikaru Nakamura, Levon Aronian, Magnus Carlsen, Temur Rajabov, and Wesley So with 4.5 points. Now, these 6 are feeling safe. They've got 3 more games to keep their position solid, and they will be in. But then take a look at this. It's the 7th and the 8th spot shared by the 2 Russians, Alexander Grischuk and the currently crowned Russian champion, Yan Nepomniachtchi, at 4 points. But the big day it is for our 9th, 10th, and 11th, 12th places. Maxim and Hari Krishna are at 3.5, Anish and David at 3. They need to find a way to leapfrog the standings to make it into the quarters. It's judgment day for these 4 players. And of course, our first big round of the day is going to be MVL against Anish, because these 2 players need to score big today. If the tournament was to go into the quarters at the moment, it would just be the first 8 places that you see right now. 2 big tournament favorites, Maxim and Anish, fighting for their spot in the quarterfinals. Let's take a look at what the players are fighting for. What is at stake? Now, the Airthings Masters is the first major of the Champions Chess Tour. Let's get the prizes up. And it is a $200,000 event, with the top prize being $60,000. It's the double of the regular events of the Champions Chess Tour. The runner-up goes back home with $40,000. There'll also be a match for the 3rd and 4th place, which is why this time you see a difference in the prize money for the 2 spots. Now, of course, we've seen the players list. This is a major. That means that it's all the top, some of the best players in the world fighting it out. And let's not forget, the winner of the Airthings Masters gets a direct spot in the grand final in September. But the race is on, and it is only heating up. We asked our players what it takes to be the best in the world. Check out this video.
I think it's mostly discipline and consistency.
Lately, I improve a lot, like understanding more the middle game. We focus too much on openings. After the opening, where you have to understand the plans of the different positions, I think that what made me a better player.
Realizing that your opponents, even the best ones and the ones with the the biggest names out there, that they make mistakes. I struggled so much against the top players when I just got into that level. They used to cheat me with the body language like all the time. I thought I was worse the whole game. Like I thought I'm better when I look at the position, but then I look at my opponent and it feels as though I'm worse. But then once you realize they can also lose and they make mistakes, that's when you can take that final step to at least become a top player.
Experience and confidence. Maybe also switching to the United States helped me compete with stronger chess players.
Discipline certainly pays off. It's hard. You lose around, 15 to 20 years of your life.
And that's what it takes to be the best. But today, all the players really have to get their A game on. It is the final day. It is now or never or goodbye for at least 4 of our players. Now, this event has been brought to us by Airthings. Airthings is monitoring the air quality of our players as well and keeping us updated with the data of what it is how good the air is that the players are breathing. Now, as the action heats up and the tension rises, of course, the air also gets red hot. Take a look at what the players said about it on Twitter. We had Magnus writing in, with every breath you take, every move you make, they'll be watching you indeed. And this is what our data is all about. We've always known that the air we breathe does affect our ability to make decisions, our cognitive ability, how quickly we think, and how fast we're able to execute our ideas, and of course, the impact on our overall health. Now, with all of this, it'll be interesting to see at the end of it if it really does have an impact on how good these players play and the moves they make. But while all that happens, we'll definitely be watching all the action. Let's move on to the next one. It was Anish. Same, though the air quality is also not good here. And we see the monitoring device that the players are using. Now, when it goes red, it really means that you need to get some fresh air in. And is it just a coincidence that Anish is not only dealing with bad air quality, but also a very tough 2 days at the tournament? All right, let's move on to the next one. Trying to achieve the home run tomorrow with the blue sign of validation. The blue sign of validation is not just for Instagram and Twitter, but also for the Airthings monitor. Now you see the monitor behind Maxime is blue, which means he's at least breathing good air. Well, he's going to need all the good air he can get today, because this is it for him. He also finds himself struggling for that spot in the quarterfinals. He needs to bring his A game on, and we'll see how he can do that in just a few moments. Let's move on. Hari saying air quality good, but play quality, not so much. But as they say, tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow is today now. Is there going to be a tomorrow for Hari, or is it just today? Again, we're going to find out in a few moments, and we can again see the players are sitting with their devices, and it always monitors. It tells them when it's time to open up the window, when it's time to get some fresh air in. And Anish saying, did you know that being high on carbon dioxide can cause lack of creativity when composing a tweet? Of course, it's not just about breathing. I mean, Twitter is where it's at. You've got to get your A game, not just on the board, not just breathe fresh air, but also on Twitter. Other negative effects of high CO2 concentration today at 3 p.m. There's a little twist in that tone, because I remember Anish's tweet from yesterday where he spoke about how he is scheduling his comeback for 3 p.m. Central Time. And today he mentions that maybe there might be some negative effects of high CO2 today at 3 p.m. CET. But I have no doubt that Anish, when he's got his back against the wall, but he also knows what he has to do. His task is cut out for him. And I think that also helps, because when it's clear, the path is pretty clear. You know, you can't really go slow. You can't take draws anymore. You either do it or you don't. At least you know what you need to do. And Anish, with 3 games, I think he needs to at least start with 2 wins and then see how the others perform. Take a look at his road today. Now, this is not exactly a dream roadmap when you've got to score big points. He faces, firstly, he's up against Maxime. And actually, just in time, I see that we're being joined by Peter. So I really want to get him in on this as well. Peter, welcome.
Yeah, hello, Tanya. Hello, everyone.
Peter, now let's just jump straight to this roadmap that we have ahead for Anish. And then we'll also talk about Maxime, the second favorite who's struggling to find a spot in the top 8 currently. Now we see that Anish is playing Maxime. So they're meeting each other in round 9. In round 10, Anish will play Grischuk and then Hikaru. While Maxime has got Raja in round 10 and then Grischuk in round 11. For both these players, Peter, a very difficult roadmap when you need to score heavy.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have all these big games, on the other hand, the good thing is that they know what they have to do. They have to score points. There is just no other way. I mean, Anish is playing with the white pieces, so clearly he's the one who should show his ambition in this game. And Maxime, probably from his side, he's looking for counter chances, because if you want to beat Maxime, you have to take chances. This is Maxime's chance. I mean, playing with the black pieces, you don't have to do anything crazy. you wait for your opponent, and I'm pretty sure that Anish is in a very aggressive mood. However, will he challenge Maxim to a very sharp Najdorf, or will he try to target his Najdorf preparation? I mean, his Grünfeld preparation? That's kind of a big question for me. In any case, very tough road for both of them.
Very tough road, Peter. And I think what I feel about this matchup is that a draw, a result that ends peacefully, will actually be disastrous for both of them. I'm expecting very aggressive play from both sides, so definitely a high chance of Najdorf. It has to be a decisive game for either of them to stand a real chance to make it into the quarterfinals. Now, we've been talking about, Peter, how the air quality has been affecting, or has it been affecting, the quality of play over the board. The other factor in the environment of play is, of course, the webcams. So the players also have access to their opponent's webcams, where they can see body language. They can try and guess whether their opponents have made mistakes or not. And we asked them whether they regularly check the webcams of their opponent or not. This is what they had to say.
I make a point of just not looking at my opponent, so I only have my own webcam when I play, and I can only look at myself just to make sure I'm in frame and I'm looking as beautiful as always.
If you play Hikaru or Magnus, it's good from time to time to look at their faces.
These guys, they have a PhD in acting.
For me, it's nothing unusual. It's Nakamura is shaking his head after move 1 is normal. After move 50 is normal.
He tries to give away so many fake tells. I just decide that I will not try to get anything from that.
This like Hikaru does, or like this, you know, and all these things that they do with Magnus and all these theatrical performances that they have become incredibly good at.
Personally, I think I'm a bit of an open book, but I don't really care. Like, I'm usually not satisfied with my play anyway.
They start shaking head when they blunder only when they're sure the opponent also sees it. They will never do that when they blunder something tricky, so you shouldn't be fooled.
I rarely show emotions anyway when I'm playing, even on the webcam.
I usually turn it off. I only turn it on when I'm 100% sure I'm winning, and I just want to see, you know, how he's suffering.
That was brilliant. Peter, you know, when we're playing over the board chess, it's pretty easy. You're sitting across each other. You just look up. You can feel the tension. You can feel the vibe from your opponent, as well as whatever little you want to infer out of body language. But tell me your experience when you were playing the Legends of Chess. Were you often checking up on the webcam and trying to decipher what's going on?
Well, I mean, it was my very first experience, so I was, you know, with every game trying to get used to the whole technical issues with all these Zoom calls and so on. And I didn't really figure out how to set exactly just my opponent's face. And I was watching all the other camera angles from all the players, and I was kind of looking at them. Some of them had been very, very relaxed. And then I was asking myself, why am I so tensed? Yeah, it's kind of funny. And then I just later decided that no, I'm not gonna follow this at all because I have enough things to do. But definitely I understood Grischuk when he said that he only wants to look at his opponent's camera when he knows that he's completely winning, because then you can already enjoy what you see. Otherwise, you never know.
You never know. And especially, I think there are a few players who are extremely expressive. So watching them, you can kind of know what's going on. It's always a delight to watch the expressions of players like Hikaru and even Magnus at times, who really bring out that raw emotion into the game. And I think when it's online chess, those inhibitions that you have about being expressive, you kind of tend to forget that there are people watching you. So I think the guard goes down a little bit more, which means a lot more fun for all of us. But it's not just the webcam action that's fun watching the players, but also the action that's about to happen on the board. Let's get our matchups on the screen. And this is the round 9 pairings. We've got 3 games today. Once again, after 3 games, it'll just be the top 8 who continue the race. It will be the end of the tournament for 4 players who finish in the bottom 4 of the leaderboard. Anish versus Maxim is a big game. And I think, Peter, we will definitely be keeping a watch on this one, because because I think at the end of this game, we'll know which one of them actually has a chance and which one of them is out of the Airthings Master. It's Alexander Grischuk versus Magnus Carlsen. I think Peter Magnus is still struggling to find his rhythm, really not feeling it as much. And it's been the last couple of tournaments where Magnus has failed to show the dominance that he showed in the first tour. It's Hikaru against David. I think Hikaru, despite it starting at 6 a.m. his time, something that he's spoken about, he's been pretty much in form, convincingly at the top of the table currently. The two Russians, Yan versus Daniel Dubov, don't have to do much again because they're also in the leaderboard. I think the approach that we've been seeing by the players of keeping it solid, keeping their position on the leaderboard intact without taking too much chances. The reason why we have been seeing such a high percentage of draws as well, something that's been surprising us, Peter. Do you think we'll see a similar approach in today's rounds?
No, I very much hope not, and I believe not, because simply the point is that, you know, all this, like, there are two players, Jan Nepomniachtchi and Alexander Grischuk, on 50%. I mean, that 50% is just nothing, because right now it's enough. But I believe that, for example, Nepomniachtchi has to take some risk because he has lost the direct encounter with Grischuk. So if they are sharing and suddenly this spot's supposed to be like decisive, then we can see Jan Nepomniachtchi being eliminated if he's sharing with other players maybe. So he needs to win. Dubov, on the other hand, is on +1. He doesn't mind the draw for sure. And Magnus also was saying something yesterday, and it was very interesting because I don't really often hear it from Magnus, that he said something that if because his play was not ideal yesterday and he was unhappy, something like this, he meant that if he's not falling completely apart, it should be fine. But by judging by this sentence from the champion, it means that he's really unhappy with his play, and it crosses his mind that maybe, I mean, if I'm collapsing, but why should he? But it's in his mind, and he has to pay attention as well. I mean, he's not safe.
We've heard that from Magnus actually a few times in the last few months. It happened at the Skilling Open when he lost the finals to Wesley, as well as when he was knocked out by Maxime Vacher-Legrave in that very epic semi-finals of the Speed Chess Championship. Not really feeling it, and, you know, feeling that he's in form and in his elements. But it's surprising, Peter, once again, when we look at the leaderboard, despite all that, despite all the hiccups, he still finds himself at the top of the table.
Yeah, that's Magnus Carlsen. But you know, yesterday I looked at some of the pictures of the tweets and so on. I mean, just to understand what is really happening, because during the broadcast I don't have any time to do that. And then I spotted somehow that Magnus looks quite tired, you know, in all these pictures when he's playing. And I was trying to understand what's the cause of it. And then I realized that, yeah, as I saw from other pictures, he's in some resort, you know, in a tropical vegetation, which is very nice to have holidays, but I'm not really sure that it's the ideal place to really play a tournament, because you are kind of automatically relaxed in this atmosphere. But in order to be successful at the chessboard, you have to be like a warrior, you have to be in an incredible fighting mood, and being under the sun all day and then in the evening play suddenly online chess where you have to give all your energy, it shouldn't be easy even for the champ.
And the competition in this field is absolutely immense. I mean, these are some of the best players in the world who, I think, Peter, also the more that they've been playing in these rapid formats, the more of these events that they've been playing, it's getting more and more difficult for the world champion to show that he's a true favorite.
Yeah, that's also, I mean, the players are adapting. Magnus also has this problem that usually whenever he is black, his opponents don't really take risks, which puts him under pressure with the white pieces that he has to score. By the way, now we already have some liftoff in a couple of games, but not yet in the... And Anish has played e4. Okay, this is good news.
It's a night off incoming, Peter.
Yeah, hopefully, but you remember we already had some hope at some point, and then the hope vanished. But I'm really hoping that we will see a really open, and okay.
And knight f6, knight c3, a6 has to be played.
Yeah, has to be played. Yeah, because then it was the rouser. You remember we already were like screaming in the Skilling Open that and it's another rouser. Wow, what a disappointment, yeah?
So much for our excitement about the night off.
Yeah, but on the other hand, the Rousey guarantees a very, very interesting fight because knight off, of course, is the most sharpest opening, but it's so heavily analyzed and the players know it so well that there is a risk that they neutralize each other due to their knowledge. But here in the Rousey, I'm pretty sure, and this is now a Sozin Velimirovic type of setup from Anish, very aggressive and not something which the players have too much experience.
And for Maxime as well, I'm sure a part of the strategy is that Anish would have prepared extremely well against the night off. Anish has just taken out a 23-hour course on night off. If you are planning to play that opening or are considering to start the night off, highly recommend that you go check out Anish's course. It's on chessable.com. So I think from Maxime, if you really think about it, it also makes sense to not just go into something which you expect your opponent has prepared a lot.
Yeah, it's a very smart choice by Anish actually to go for the Sozin. Of course, thinking that he knows what he's doing because, okay, this is a very, very sharp setup. And the question is also how much experience does Maxime have with it? The big difference compared to the usual knight off setup is that Black has committed his knight to c6. On the other hand, we have seen this game Levon Aronyan versus Anish Giri, which was one of the highlights of the tournament. So far, this very, very sharp knight off where Levon went for this bishop c4, bishop e3 setup against the knight off and played with long castle f3. And Anish anyway went with his knight to a5 and played this b5. But there we haven't seen queen c7. And that's the point that here, due to the developed knight on c6, if you want to play the move b7, b5, you actually have to protect your knight on c6 first. And looking at some other games, because here now Anish taking his time, look at this, what I have spotted. There is Jan Nepomniachtchi, Daniel Dubov, and this doesn't look like a quiet game to me. Look at this, black knight on h6.
So black knight on h6 and a knight on f6, which has traveled from b8, d7 to f6. This is not a situation you find every day with the two knights on f6 and h6.
Yeah, not at all. And let's just take a quick look. How did it happen? First of all, the big surprise, Nepomniachtchi has played the move 1d4. It's definitely not his main opening, trying to surprise Dubov. And Dubov goes for the King's Indian in return. Okay, so that's how we got this stuff. Bishop e2, bishop e3, knight c6, a very provocative way of playing. Jan basically lets himself provoked. I mean, it's already a little bit of a sign, you know, that, yeah, Jan always has a lot of confidence, but do you really have to be provoked by Daniel? Because Daniel is the big master of all these slightly dubious looking lines, which he knows very well, and definitely Jan is out of the book. I mean, I cannot imagine him being in the book here.
And that's quite interesting because, Peter, when we got the position on the board, I really thought the knights on h6 and f6 had traveled a different route, but we see how they actually got there. And that was a lot of tempos. Now, when you see the structure of the two knights on f6 and h6, g4 is so tempting to play to try and get g5 in, but it's also extremely committal. Do you think that's a possibility for white, or do you think that's more dangerous for white than for black?
Well, I mean, actually g4 looks very, very powerful unless black has some very strong counter blow in the center somehow. However, judging by the fact how quickly Daniel has played the opening, he should be at least in some kind of a preparation. I don't believe that you take such risks and you blitz out all these moves without really having some understanding of what's happening. And knowing Dubov, I mean, after g4, some sacrifice on e4 and then breaking the position with d6, d5 might be there. And Jan has gone for it. I mean, Jan is a very, very principled player, and he just wants to kill this knight.
Oh, wow. And Dubov blitzes out to create a definite sign that he's still in preparation, because when you see a threat like g5, you don't make the move rook e8 so quickly.
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't believe that white wants to play g5 because, okay, if you play g5, black gonna sacrifice on e4, and after knight takes e4, okay, I don't know how things are continuing here, but even after some move like knight f5, maybe black has incredible compensation because then all this spin along the e file, the damaged pawn structure. Okay, maybe I have to pay attention to bishop c3, but I mean, I see lot of dynamics here coming, and Jan develops the knight first to f3. Yeah, you shouldn't ask for trouble.
But of course, g5 is something that was that many of us would find a threat. But indeed, Jan decides to keep it safe and solid with development. Also, Peter, when your opponent makes a move like rook e8 in just seconds, you know that there is some solid prep against g5.
Yeah, I mean, definitely your opponent has consulted the computer, and that's the point, because you feel that after g5 there are ideas for black. You might not be able to really understand what exactly, but you can imagine that, yeah, the computer finds a way to come up with some really dangerous possibilities. And in this regard, if you feel that with knight f3 you are actually keeping the position, and what I really would love for white to play a move like queen c2 and get ready to castle long. I mean, if white gets this, then he gets a strategically winning position, because this knight from h6 is actually not running away. There is just no reason to win this knight right away. The point is, however, that, okay, black definitely will hit the center, hit the e4 pawn somehow, and he has to hit the e4 pawn. I don't know, with move like bishop d7. Is that a move? Yeah, rerouting to c6, and yeah, it's played. Yeah, it's played. And it's not rerouting on c6. I mean, first of all, you hit the e4 pawn immediately, and you get ready to activate the bishop via c6.
Definitely easier to see now why g5 is nothing to worry about, because black is directly threatening knight e4. White can't really afford to give up this e pawn and open up the e file, because the rook is eyeing the king right now. So how is white going to defend this? Is queen c2 the move here?
Yeah, well, queen c2 would be the move that comes to mind. I mean, okay, just to stabilize, and white is one move away from long castle. However, for example, after queen c2, if black plays a move like bishop c6, insisting on hitting on the e4 pawn, then how are you going to protect it? It's not so easy.
Is white counting on a defense like knight g5? Because I really don't see, because bishop d3 feels very loose on the e file. I don't know if black can directly take advantage by sacking on e4 or go d5, but bishop d3 just, and he's gone for, what did white play? He went g5.
Yeah, he went g5. So basically he just wants to confuse us and everyone else in the world, that why do you do this exactly here? On the other hand, with the knight on f3, let's not forget, black made a move back with his bishop to d7, and white got a tempo with knight f3, claiming that, okay, I stop any kind of queen h4 check when I take the knight. And yes, he takes the knight on h6.
Okay, so what is black's move here? How is black fighting for his initiative? It definitely looks like compensation, Peter, right now, but black doesn't have all the time. You can't really make slow moves. So what is it knight g3? Is that an option here? Or do you take on c3? Because if you take on, he's gone for neither of them. Bishop h6 played.
Yeah, I think that you had to eliminate this pawn, because this pawn on h6 was really disturbing, and you need the dark squared bishop. And basically what Dubov is saying, that I have two pawns, I damage your pawn structure, your king is still in the center, it's not so easy to get unpinned, because the rook on e8 is very well placed, and there is some disharmony in white's pieces. In my opinion, I mean, practically speaking, it looks like a very typical Dubovish sacrifice, where he definitely has very good practical compensation. In fact, I'm not 100% sure how to play with the white pieces. I mean, what is my move? How do I get out? How do I evacuate my king somewhere?
I mean, the dream is to go queen c2 and long castle, but it's 2 moves away. And is short castle really all that bad?
Well, but then the pawn on h3 is also
Yeah,
hanging.
h3
Yeah,
falls, yeah.
it's kind of the third pawn already. But if you don't cast, I mean, for example, a move like queen c2 can be met by your suggestion with knight g3, hitting my bishop and hitting the rook. Okay, it's not end of the world. Of course, white can, for example, play the move rook h2, but
Bishop f5.
It feels very loose. Yeah, I mean, all kinds of tempos. Bishop f5, bishop can come from c6. You are constantly hitting this e2 square. I'm very curious that how Jan will treat this, because he's very good in all this craziness, but is maybe knight takes e4, rook takes e4, king f2 an option? I mean, just trying to, okay, I give the f4 pawn, but I would love to play bishop d3, get out of this pin, coordinate my forces, and if I develop them, finally the pawns are not that important yet. What do you think about this option if I just take on e4 and play king f2? Is it too risky, or I don't have anything else?
I mean, if you get bishop d3, that's the dream, but I'm looking for ways in which black can try and continue the pressure. Let's take a look at what happens if black does capture on f4. Do you just simply go bishop d3 immediately? And then you say that there's no, and he's gone for it, Peter, knight e4, rook e4. We might be looking at king f2 now.
Yeah, because to be honest, I don't see any other move. I mean, queen e7 is already a very, very strong threat. I don't believe that you can castle. Yeah, king f2 followed by bishop d3. But so after king f2, you have this move queen f6, which
bishop
kind
d3.
of also, yeah, let's take a look, because maybe after queen f6, for example, bishop d3, can you sacrifice your rook? I mean, I would not rule it out even with a move like bishop c6 or rook takes f4. Playing on the dark squares, I mean, it's also an absolutely normal way of just, you know, playing like this, takes. And you say that, okay, I even have some ideas like g5, h5, g4, rook e8, bishop c6. It's a whole rook. Probably it's objectively too much, but in a practical game, even such ideas are to be considered.
This is an incredible position, and we see that Jan is taking his time. So while Daniel is still keeping up the momentum on the clock and playing fast, makes you understand that actually Jan is out of the books. He's finding the moves over the board, while Daniel still has a clear idea and picture of what he wants to do.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, basically, I'm not sure how deeply you can analyze all these ideas, yeah? I mean, it could also very well be that Daniel just knew that, you know, there is this idea that I provoke my opponent, he goes for the piece, and I always have enough compensation. And then the preparation ends somewhere because you are not expecting this to happen. I mean, how could have Daniel expected this position? It's just not possible at all.
Yeah.
But definitely it shows that the players are in a very, very fighting mood today. Completely different than yesterday, a lot at stake. I mean, every position, I mean, not every, there are 1-2 solid positions, but I mean, the Anish game against Maxim is completely out of control. Also the game Hikaru Nakamura against David Anton is ultra sharp. I mean, Jan's position, and Jan has played the move f5. Wow, this is very, very interesting move. Look at this. F4,
okay,
F5.
so the bishop on h6 is hanging. Black can't take on f5. So is black going to take bishop d2? But then the good news after bishop d2 is that queen d2, and it kind of gives you the way to go long castle next. Although black can build up the pressure on the bishop on e2 as well with queen e7.
Yeah, you have queen e7 just to illustrate that. Yeah, if bishop takes f5, then black has taken the third pawn. However, white castles long. And definitely one has the feeling that white should be better because the piece is quite important in this middle game position. So after f5, for example, after bishop takes d2, queen d2, queen e7 is certainly a move that comes to mind. But still, white can then again try to play king f2 and say that with queen e7 and rook e4, you are running into some rook a1, bishop d3 massive exchanges on the e file. We see that the knight on f3 is a very, very nice guard for white's king. As they always say, the knight is the best friend of the king, covering the h4 square, covering all the important squares. Even I would not be completely surprised if if black would remove his bishop back to g7, but it's certainly a tempo, and then does feel like white achieved something.
Absolutely. But I have to say that after f5, bishop d2 just doesn't feel like in the spirit of the position, because you trade off a piece, plus you make things just easier for white. I think it does make sense for black to try and keep the tension as much as possible, but the question is how? Because even after bishop g7, Peter, it makes me think about your move. Can white still go king f2, or is that more dangerous now because somewhere you'll have bishop d4, knight d4, queen h4? But once the king comes to g2, then I think white can bishop c6. Actually, this is an interesting line, Peter. Can black go bishop d4 here?
Bishop d4 here, yeah? Yeah, it's always always ultra sharp. Yeah, if I go to g2, then you play bishop c6. This is...
The dream is to get the bishop on c6.
This is feeling quite unpleasant because all these pins everywhere, and I don't want my knight to be pinned, definitely. So hang on, but after bishop g7, do I have to play king f2? I also have a move like bishop g5. It's a nice tempo, but on the other hand, I'm not sure where do I go with it. Even you can play a move like queen e8, putting the pressure on the e2 bishop, and it will be hard to castle for me. And even a move like bishop f6 would be possible. I mean, it's bishop g5 is not ideal.
Can white after bishop g7, because you're not attacking the h3 pawn anymore, just go short castle? Does white have time to do that? Because I'm looking at bishop f5, and then maybe, just maybe, there's time to go bishop d3. It's so complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated. And okay, if you can exchange the bishops in a good circumstance, then it's perfectly fine, especially if you damage my pawn structure. So instead of removing my rook, I would consider it just to sacrifice it. But how do I sacrifice it? It's not so easy. It's easy to say that I want to sacrifice, but how do I do it? It's a completely different thing. Hang on, so you castle, yeah? After bishop g7. Well, certainly that's a shocker. I mean, short castle is a very interesting move.
Especially because you don't have bishop h3 anymore. So it's the moment. If white has to go castle, then it could be this moment.
Yeah, so I have to take on f5 and you go bishop d3. And the big question, how do I sacrifice my rook?
Also, of course, instead of bishop g7, maybe there are other options as well. You know, this position is just so full of dynamics. I mean, bishop g7 looks extremely attractive, but yeah, Daniel having a think here on how to continue.
Yeah, by the way, we already have the very first result. Wesley So versus Timur Rajabov game has ended in a draw. Both players are on +1, so this is kind of understandable strategy for them just to play as solid as possible. Wesley doesn't want to take any risk. Rajabov relies on his very solid, well-established repertoire. But, I mean, okay, this game of Jan Nepomniachtchi, Daniel Dubov is completely out of control. Let's take a quick look at what's happening with our game of the round, Anish Giri versus Maxim Vachier-Lagrave. Look at this. It's black got the dark square bishop. Usually that's a really good news. On the other hand, now that black has committed the move b5, b4 already, if white can set up some blockade like b3 and get a knight to c4, then he might have a very nice grip of the position and combine with kingside play with h4. So I would say that strategically a very, very interesting position. It's not those type of things that black got the two bishops and it's doing very good thanks to this b4 knight a4 inclusion.
But this is just the kind of position that both players are aiming for, because they need to fight this game out and create chances. And it's exactly that, because you know, there's so many combative options here that you know that the position is going to explode in a couple of moves. And he goes rook c8. I really like that. It's a very thematic way to play here. Does white want to try and get h5, g6 in next?
Well, to be honest, I feel that h4, h5, and then g6 doesn't really scare me that much with the black pieces, because all white's pieces are on the queen side, and I do feel like that something like, you know, this b3 and then putting the knight to c4, getting the grip, stabilizing my structure would be very nice, combined with play on the king side with h5 g6. But just going for a clear attack, yeah, and b3 played, yeah, I like this.
b3 on the board, trying to get that c4 square in, also stopping any play on the c file. So it's quite instructive to not rush with the king side pawn storm and actually just control the position on the queen side first.
Yeah, also there is one direct line, I think, where we can understand what is happening. If white would have played the move h5, black had the chance of playing knight c5, which is strategically very, very important for black. You capture on c5, I take with the queen on c5, and suddenly your pawn on g5 is loose. You have to keep the queens with queen g3, but then, I mean, where is this attack? I mean, the attack is not really going anywhere after, and maybe black is in time to create his own counterplay. Still, white has the idea of playing b3 and then bishop c4 fighting on the light squares, but playing b3 immediately is more natural. Black has played the move queen a5, basically hinting that, yeah, I don't want to give you the chance of putting your knight on c4, because then I'm going to sacrifice everything and your knight on a4 is hanging.
And Peter, while Maxime and Anish fight tooth and nail for the points to climb up the ladder on the leaderboard, I can't get my eyes off the Jan-Daniel game. And take a look at what's happened. Instead of bishop to g7, Daniel decided to play the move queen f8, and white eventually at least got the castle in.
Yeah, I mean, queen f8 is a super nice move. Yeah, we actually just missed it as a candidate move. It looks so natural that black has to move his bishop because it's hanging, but queen f8, protecting the bishop, not releasing the tension, getting rook e8 ready is, of course, the way to go. I'm pretty sure that it's a very, very strong move. The question is, what does it give? White plays the move short castle, is getting ready for bishop d3. Does black have enough compensation, or is this more of a bluff? That's the big question.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind is that the idea that you suggest to just go rook e8 here, doubling up on the e file, and then does white want to go bishop d3?
Yes, I want.
And can you give I want to somehow get my queen on h6, so bishop e3. I don't know, bishop e3, let's start with bishop e3. Is this some way? But you could, so complicated, because I'm looking at bishop e3, rook e3, fg6, but then even the h3 pawn hangs.
Yeah, but I don't want to take on e3 yet. Yeah, I would like to just make a move. I don't know, can I play a move like king g2?
Why not?
Just not to release, or king h2, but yeah, it's super complicated. And it's on the board, rook a8, bishop d3 on the board.
On the board. So what are the options? You can either give a check on e3, or you fall back with the rook. And falling back with the rook just feels a little slow, because then white gets all these this time to take on g6 or go knight g5. I don't think that black has time to just simply fall back with the rook.
Yeah, or just to continue in the spirit and sacrifice the rook as well with bishop takes f5. Is it too much? I don't know. It's very hard to judge, because this h3 pawn is really vulnerable. So let's just imagine I take on e4, you take back, and I can never really exchange the bishops, because bishop h6 brings your queen into the game, and I'm not in time to get rook e1. And if you take queen takes h3, then all these rook g4 checks are coming. And Daniel does rook e3, so he does sacrifice the rook, but he wants to get the dark squared bishops.
This is absolutely stunning chess, Peter. I mean, you know, moves like bishop e3 come to mind, but move like rook e3 is just so, it just shows the beauty that exists in chess.
Yeah, it's a beautiful move. It's a positional move. However, from the white side, to be honest, I was more worried of giving up my light square bishop, because I feel that this knight on f3, bishop d3, pawn on f5, and the light square blockade gives me quite a good stability. While the other one, surprisingly, it first looked like it's not that dangerous. I was a little bit struggling to find a good response there after the rook sacrifice with bishop takes f5. I mean this position, because we can compare that is this position with one rook up for white, but black has very good compensation, and now we can compare with the actual current position. But king g2 is like a little bit asking for trouble, and bishop c6 on the board. So finally, the bishop, what we were talking about, that we would love to avoid this knight getting pinned, finally it appeared.
I mean, black is an entire rook down, just materially speaking. But these two bishops are giving so much play. And I'm wondering, Peter, about that option of bishop f5. Maybe the point was that black wants the dark squared bishop instead of the light squared one. Also, that could have allowed rook e1 at some point after trading on e4. And maybe that's something that that Daniel did not like. In any case, this is what we have on the board. I'm not really sure how do you evaluate. I'm looking at the bar, and surprisingly, even though black is down a rook, the engine loves it for black currently, just looking at the bar.
Yeah, I mean, okay, this bishop on c6 and the other one, the colleague on e3 is just very, very powerful. What is very nice with the bishop on e3 that basically the rook on e8 will never be challenged, yeah, because the bishop is there, so any rook a1 will not come with a tempo, and every tempo counts in this position. Now, Jan played the move queen e1. He wants to definitely get his queen out. If he gets the queen to h4, I believe that more or less everything is under control for him, but this is still very, very far away. Black even has some ideas like queen g7 just attacking the b2 pawn. And suddenly, if a queen would appear on the second rank, would give a very unpleasant check. But okay, black has so many options now.
Also, just a quick update, Peter. Hikaru Nakamura did beat David Anton, a game that we didn't have a chance to look at, but just looking at the last and the final position, it feels like it was a complete Nakamura show.
Yeah, I kept an eye on it. It looked to me always that, first of all, Hikaru came very well prepared. That was my feeling. He was putting David Anton under pressure. And okay, usually Hikaru is really merciless. I mean, if he gets a better position, then he just scores. I mean, he just never misses any chance of getting a win if he gets the chance to do so.
You know, Peter, I'm just going to draw you back to what we have in front of us, because I really need you to make sense out of what is happening. I mean, black is in whole rook down. He makes a move like g5. The engine bar, the evaluation bar is giving no advantage to white whatsoever. Can you just break this down for us?
Well, it's a very nice positional idea. First of all, it stops any kind of queen h4. After any kind of queen g3, black will have the move bishop f4. In fact, I'm a little bit worried of one scenario that at some point, if white plays queen g3, black goes bishop f4, queen f2, bishop e3 might be a kind of logical, so-called logical repetition in this chaos. On the other hand, black has this plan of h5 and g4. And with the king stuck on g2, if black gets this h5, g4 in, it can be really deadly for white. So I'm not... Yeah, and Jan goes for the move queen g3. First of all, after bishop f4, white also has the move queen g4, which is much more logical, stopping any kind of h5. In this regard, does black play the move h5 first? But then I have time to go rook e1. And then bishop f4. Okay, let's take a look at this. Yeah, h5. And the line after rook e1 could continue with bishop f4. You have to... I mean, you can change first rook e8, queen e8.
And queen e1 maybe?
Queen e1, but I mean, for example, in worst case scenario, I'm not liking for black.
Because then white can go bishop e4 at the
end,
right?
Yes, so maybe
Let's
I
just
have
show
to play...
that, Peter, one moment. That
Yes.
What is the problem with this line?
Yeah, takes g4, then you just take and play bishop e4 and you get a technically winning position. You give the knight, but you trade the bishops. And that's it. However, here there was this option of, after queen e1, to play the move bishop e3 again, and claiming that how do you remove your king from the pin, and g5, g4 is coming. It's a super sharp position. I'm pretty sure that I'm talking nonsense, because without really focusing on the board and calculating like crazy. Very, very hard to understand exactly move per move what is about to happen here. There is, okay, but no, it's also not easy, because another idea was to play h5, rook e1, and to play the move queen g7, but it might be slow, I don't know. And look at this, bishop f4 on the board, queen g4, rook e3. So this is a very direct way of dealing with the e file. You get the tempo hitting the bishop, and now black is probably ready to activate the queen with queen e7, and then you can never challenge the rook on e3. Very, very interesting. This is nice. Yeah, white has to go rook a d1. You cannot give up the e2 square. You have to keep the bishop on d3. But black has such a big domination. Yeah. How do I get out? Maybe with some rook f2, king f1. Is that the way to finally unpin myself? I want to get my king to safety, but this is completely out of control. Rook a d1 on the board.
I'm just seeing how black can get h5. If black can get h5 somehow, that's just a queen trap, but there's really no good way to defend this. And I like your idea of stopping. He's gone queen g7, so he's hitting the b2 pawn, but then this brings in the question of rook f2, which is something that white wants to play anyway to try and get the king to f1.
Yeah, rook f2, king f1 was basically the idea also after queen e7, because, yeah, you really need, I'm not just wondering that.
Does he want to go queen h8, h5, or is that f6 you want to play?
Yeah, I mean, at least I want to check that. Can I do something like f6 with the idea of queen takes f6 and then trying to get queen f5, but you hit on b2 with check. Yeah, this is bad news.
But is it over because you have rook, but you don't have rook f2 because of the f3 knight?
Exactly, and then it's terrible pins everywhere. Yeah, so Jan, of course, plays the practical move rook f2. It's very logical. That's what you want to do. And then king f1. And now you wanted to try queen h8?
It was just my insistence on getting the idea of h5, but queen h8 looks just so ugly. Also, after queen h8, I realized that now you can even just go f6, because queen f6, now you'll have queen f5.
Yeah, I mean, I have this, but even this was not 100% clear how much it gives me. But yeah, it's already certainly an improvement.
It's definitely an improvement with nothing on b2 hanging. Bishop f3, rook f3, queen b2, you just come back, rook f2. Rook g3 is still, actually, Peter, it might not be over. Can we just have a look?
No, but I have bishop c2 maybe, no? I mean, if you you take, I have bishop c2. This is what I liked.
Your queen on f5.
Yeah.
But rook e2 and then rook f2. So you keep everything under control.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the big question is how do you continue? And look at this. Daniel was up on the clock and now he's way behind. He's down to 2.5 minutes versus 6 minutes from Jan. Complete chaos on the board.
Actually, Peter, regardless of black's move, whether it's a queen to e5 or any move that I can come up with, I think the idea of f6 is actually very powerful, because you want to get that queen on f5. If queens get traded, that's the dream. If you can just activate your pieces. How is Daniel fighting the threat of f6 actually?
Yeah, it's a big question. Also the big question that, but now I do want to play king f1, yeah, because the good thing about having the queen on g4 is that my knight on f6 is protected. So eventually I could claim that I want to go king f1.
That's why I wanted to go queen h8, so that if you went king f1, then I'd have h5. But then you suddenly have the idea of going for f6 after queen h8.
Yes, exactly. I mean, after queen h8, definitely I'm gonna go f6. And it's also a move that you can play a tempo. It is a very pleasing move. Queen takes f6 is forced. You go queen f5, offering the trade of queens, threatening on h7. And the move like queen g7 can be answered by, okay, maybe queen c8. Yeah, I can answer it, but it's not the end. And queen h8,
he's gone for queen h8. He's gone for queen h8.
Yeah, it's on the board. Yeah, queen h8.
Oh, that's whether it's good or bad, it makes me feel good about it.
Yeah, you started to sense the Dubovic play, yeah?
It's very Alpha Zero-esque as well, right? This Queen H8 move. I think all of us just have this move in our heads now.
Yeah, of course, it's very pleasing. And look at the position. I mean, this bishop on f4, rook on e3, bishop c6 are, yes, you are really...
Queen h5. But the engine hates Queen h8. I mean, I just saw the bar. It just doesn't like it at all.
Yeah, but I mean, look at these pieces, because you hardly see such beautiful pieces dominating White's forces, but White is a whole rook up. And if you are not hurrying up and you are not able to prove anything, then okay, slowly White will unpin himself and the rook will count.
I really liked your idea of f6. I felt it was so direct, and queen f6, queen f5 looked like it was solving all of White's problems. But queen h5, so it stops h5, which was the main idea of queen h8. And now still White is threatening to go king f1 next, Peter. Then he'll start hitting the g5, and he repeats. He comes back to g7. So
Yeah,
can White go
basically-
f6 now?
Yeah, basically indicating that queen h5 was a really nice move. I mean, queen h5, not giving up the pawn yet, because yeah, we are ready to give up the pawn, but over the board you might feel that, okay, I don't want to give the third pawn for my opponent. But with queen h5, I kind of stopped every attempt. I'm having f6 whenever I want, because it's not so easy to stop that. And with king f1, you finally unpin yourself. Looking good for White now.
Not only on the board, take a look at the clock situation. Daniel, who was looking like very well prepared, is down to 10 seconds on the clock. Very difficult position. And that's the thing with these positions where you sacrifice a rook, and it's so unclear that just one wrong move and you lose all your initiative, or you burn the clock. It's such a difficult position to play.
Yeah, I mean, you might have the feeling that you have objectively enough. I mean, if you can consult the computer and he can give you a hint like, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, you have to place your pieces exactly like this, because in all these variations, it's worked like this and this. However, the players don't have the possibility. They rely on their feelings. And often the feeling, which is usually right, is exactly move per move, not working out as well as all the concrete lines what computer calculates.
And he's finally gone for f6, Peter. So the point is, if queen f6, you want to take on g5, and you trade the queens, and bishop f2, king f2, and bishop f2, king f2, and that's just an extra piece. Black has 2 pawns, but it doesn't look enough at all, especially with 8-7 and everything hanging. Rook hanging, 8-7 pawn hanging.
Yeah, you simply cannot take on f2. You have to try to rely on this, that the knight on g5 has some problem. So h6 is very natural, but I believe that White should have a nice move here. Because,
can White just go knight to 8-7, or even knight f7 might be an option. But knight f7, you take on f2, knight 8-6. Yeah, knight f7 is an option, Peter.
Yeah, it's an option. I just wanted to pause a little bit in this position and say that it's very nice that Jan has like 6 minutes on the clock, because if you would have just few seconds, despite being a rook up, it's still so tricky. This knight is loose on f7. But yeah, Jan has taken on f7, and Daniel played the move king g7, and now knight d8. Yeah, this is very nice, hitting the bishop on c6 with a tempo.
Sorry, Peter, just to highlight why Black couldn't take on f2 after knight f7, because you can just simply, you don't take king f2 because of rook f3 check, but you pick up the pawn on 8-6 first, and king g7 is met by knight f5 check.
Yeah, but knight f5 check, I play the move king f6. Okay, yeah, it's a technical win, yeah, because I still have the h3 pawn. Yeah. And after knight d8, the move bishop takes f2 had been played. It's a very sad move from Black, but the problem is that bishop d7 would have been met by rook f7 check. And this knight d8 move reminds me of Magnus's knight b8 yesterday, when the knight was moving away from action, seemingly moving away, but it delivered a devastating effect on Daniel's position. And
now that the dust has settled on this game, and we know that Jan Nepomniachtchi is doing well, he's got an extra piece and should be able to convert this without too much trouble. Daniel also down on the clock. Should we just now move on to our very important matchup of Anish and Maxime? Because I'm looking at the position and it looks, what does this look like?
I mean, it looks like white is safe and white should be the one calling the action. Simply that what we have seen at the very beginning when we jumped in and we saw, and I was telling you about this b4 pawn, that due to this b5, b4, that white has grip over the light squares, that gives white a very secure position, and everything that happened so far, I think, illustrates that, yeah, in long terms, white has things under control. The knight is more powerful than this bishop on e7. Now black activates this bishop. Yeah, definitely. But black's king on e8 is feeling insecure. The only problem for white is that, I mean, the pawn on c2, if it falls, white gets checkmated. So white has to be careful. It's not so easy to... And Anish down to 30 seconds. Wow, okay, then this is going to be dramatic.
And black offers a queen trade.
Yeah, knight d3, queen c4. Yeah, this was the question, that how much advantage will white have in the endgame if we get to see the endgame? Or can white play the move queen a4 check? Is that a good move or is it an insane move? Yeah, that's a big question.
On the board, so king to e7 is where you want to put your king. He's gone king f8. So he's still taking advantage of the fact that the queen on a4 is tied down to the defense of the pawn on c2. But it makes me wonder if white can go rook e2, and he's gone for it, Peter, because now if the queen comes on d7 or on a7, it could be very dangerous for black with rook f2 coming in.
Yeah, black is running to h8. I mean, that's kind of the safe shelter. But yeah, now look at this. White queen enters the game. White
this is looking scary. This is looking scary for black now.
Yeah, and also that you simply collect now this d6 pawn, which is not so important in itself because it was a weak pawn, but the pawn on e5 is about to fall, and now every endgame is probably winning for white. So Anish about to come back in
professionally done by Anish. Professionally done, just trades off the queen, the e5 pawn will fall, and that's it.
Yeah, with this lovely knight on d3, I mean, imagine if white gets time to get his king to b3, then everything is in perfect harmony, and I don't see how black can stop it. I mean, it's sometimes in these endgames you have technical difficulties, but here I even don't really see how black can put up a serious fight.
And an update, Peter, we don't need to go to the game, but Jan Nepomucci did win that endgame. Once everything calmed down, it was Jan who came on top and then had a nice few technical moves, and he beat Daniel Dubov. This one also looks like Anish is going to do the only thing that he needed to do to have any shot at the qualifying spot. Looks like it's going to be bad news for the Frenchman.
Yeah, looks completely lost. I mean, the rook on e4 cements the position. The pawn on b4 is about to fall. Now, the only thing is Anish has to keep his nerves together, but when you have things under control, it's quite easy to keep your nerves. I mean, it's not that crazy type of position that you might be winning, but with one single mistake, you can spoil anything. It's really nice for him, but he needs to make a decision. Does he play just king b2, king b3? He's down to few seconds on the clock, and he has gone for knight xb. What? With 1 second on the clock, did Anish play the move? I mean, no, don't. I mean, this cannot be true. His clock jumped back to 11 seconds. Can you believe it that with your mouse you are taking this risk in a winning position? I mean, he almost lost it. Unbelievable.
Amazing. Yeah. And now he's got these c5, d5 pawns. So this should be, this should actually make him not take any more of those chances with the clock. Making a move in 1 second in an online format is really asking for trouble.
Yeah, well, probably he has started his move with 3 seconds on the clock or something. But I mean, look at this. You have 10 seconds increment for each move. He had made his decision. He just grabbed this pawn and he's now already in over 1 minute. Yeah. Then how on earth you take this risk? I mean, do it with 5 seconds on the clock. I'm pretty sure that Anish's wife Sopiko went completely crazy at this moment because, okay, you just cannot do this to your relatives. You just cannot do this. I mean, one thing, you know, players and the spectators think about the players, but you also, as a player, you know exactly that what your wife and your trainer and so on, your fans are going through in such moments. And I remember
Peter, knowing Anish, I think he enjoys that. He enjoys the fact that he's torturing his trainer and other people around him.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, this was really scary. I mean, when I realized that he just made the movie, I mean, he jumped back to 11 seconds. That was just unbelievable.
All right. So how is White converting this? So knight c2 played, king e4. You just take
on e3. I mean, just take on e3 and
immediately just trade off.
Yeah. I mean, okay, takes, king b5. You have to go king d4, I go king b6, you take, I go c7, and then I just win.
The cleanest path.
Yeah, and okay, Anish has played it.
That's a happy looking Anish on the webcam that we've got, Peter.
Yeah, this is the moment what Grischuk had been talking about. Now you have the right to take a look at your opponent. In this position is the right moment. Yeah, that's it.
And that's it. Maxime, you can see the pain, and he knows that this is perhaps the end of the road for him. Maxime Vacher-Lagrave resigns, which means that Anish still keeps the hope alive of making it into the quarterfinals, while for Maxime, this feels like the end of the road.
Yeah, and we still have 2 games. The game Levon Aronyan Pental Hari Krishna looks like a dead draw to me. And this one is very interesting because this rook endgame 2 versus 1, usually it's like almost always a very easy draw. However, now White's king is cut away by the rook on e5 on the e file, and White has this weakness on h5. But how can you target it, because you have this weakness on g7? Yeah, Sasha goes rook g1. It looks like it shouldn't be enough for black to convert.
So if black goes rook e5, rook h1, rook g5, then white is able to get the king over to the king side on time, and you don't have time to go king f5, king g4.
Exactly, yeah, because the last move was rook e7, rook g5, then you are in time for king e4 and you stop king f5, king g4, which would be the winning maneuver. Okay, now you could play the move rook g4 check, king f3, king g5, but
still on.
I mean, something like this I'm expecting, but Magnus just goes first with rook a7. Maybe he insists, or he relies on the fact that, but okay, now White plays king e3, now White's king just come way too close.
So what was the point in that line? How was Magnus how was Alexander defending the position with rook e5, rook g5 here?
Yeah, rook g4 check, king f3, king g5. I mean, at least it's a bit scary. Maybe you cannot make any, but yeah, maybe I cannot make any progress. Maybe rook you can just wait.
So, but if you just wait, you mean with rook h2?
No, but I mean, rook h4 is a threat, yeah, because rook g2 check, I'm going back king f6 and then the pawn falls, yeah. This is the danger. I mean, I mean, very strange, because it looks like it's a very tempting option to go for this rook g5, and
maybe he just goes. What was the line after king e4? You go rook g4, and yeah, there's.
Yeah, you have to come back, and I play the move king g5.
Peter, maybe it's rook f1 check instead. After rook g5, rook f1 check, and rook f7 if you go king e5.
No, but I'm gonna go king e6. You keep checking me, but no, then I already go king f5.
King f5 and king g4.
This is very mysterious, but okay, let's go back to the game, because Sasha only has 20 seconds and Magnus is trying something similar. He cuts now the king on the 3rd rank, and basically he wants to go rook h3. And if you go rook h1, probably you have king g2.
Yeah, because you don't have king g5, because then just a check, you move the king to h2 and the g7 pawn hangs.
Yeah, that's true, but now rook a5.
Rook h1 has to be played.
Yeah, but now king g5, you are getting to very similar what we have been afraid of.
On the board, and king f3, you've got rook a3 check.
Yeah, and then you have to go king if, I mean, we might be seeing this. It's so difficult to say what is happening objectively, but Sasha is down to 5 seconds on the clock. He has to make a move. It's very, very unpleasant to defend such position.
And now is black going to give rook a3 check, or do you play something else?
Well, feeling-wise, rook a3 check is the natural move, yeah, because then you kind of get your. But Magnus goes rook f5 check.
So his idea is king g3, rook f4, and then we get very similar to that position that we were talking about, Peter.
Exactly, yeah. Basically, we get almost the same. Alexander goes king e3. Yeah, so he needs his king on the e file in order to give this check, but
rook f4 now. Rook f4 now. Maybe you've got rook a1. He's gone rook g1, rook g4. And now rook h4. This is what you were talking about. Rook h4, rook g1, king f6.
Yeah, this is now very similar, but then you still give the checks and then you go back. Yeah, that's why he needs his king on e3. We had this position with king on f3 and we were wondering what is white's move. White would have played the move king e3 and we would be back. Yeah, this is a lovely defense. King f6, rook f1 check. And after king e6, I can come back to attack the pawn on g7.
If black hides on g8, you'll go rook f1, rook f5.
Exactly. So now king e5 on the board. Yeah, Magnus wants to make sure that after rook g1, he first gives the check rook h3 check. Rook g1. Rook h3 check gonna be played. King e2, king f6, rook f1. And now Sasha is back to 40 seconds and he has the so-called logical position, which probably he was relying on as a defense. Because this he had to foresee, and wow, I mean, it would be an incredibly important save for Sasha. If he loses, he also goes down to -1, and he's in a very difficult state. So he has to make sure to hold this.
And now you can't go rook f5 because I think black has time to go king e6. So you attack it one more time, and only when the king goes to g8 do you go rook f5.
Yes, now you go rook f5.
Still holding it together.
Yeah, king f2. I mean, this is okay. Just be careful that the pawn and you. But yeah, it's just a draw because the pawn and game is a draw.
Yes, I think that's a very crucial point. King f2. Let's show that, Peter. And king h7, king h6. Justin. Although king h7, maybe king h3. Yes.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, that I only play king g4 once. You play king h6, and now with g6, with this. I mean, this is a complete draw.
I think Magnus is going to try and push this a little more than go for this king pawn ending immediately, because that's just signing the paper.
Yeah, but it was Alexander who played the move rook f1 back. Like he was not. I mean, do we blunder something? It's very. I mean, it's logical what he's doing, but I mean, if king f2 draws the game, then it draws on the spot. So takes king f3. So king h7 is just. I mean, okay, I can go king g3.
Maybe king f7.
Yeah, king h7 is just a dead draw, so you have to try king f7. Then okay, I have to wait.
And king e6.
You go king e6. Yeah, that's.
And just to explain, the point is that black wants to play king f6 when you go king g4, and now king f6.
Yeah, now black wins. Yeah, that's it. So basically, then this pawn endgame is lost. Okay, very important to understand. I mean, feeling-wise, yeah, it might be a dead draw, it might be completely lost. You have to calculate.
So Peter, that's like a mutual zugzwang, that if white is able to get the king on g4 and it's black's move, then white's fine. If it's white to play, then white loses that position.
Exactly, yeah. And with this king e6 triangle, you can always force me to go to g4. So that's the winning method. However, now then everything starts from the beginning, with white having a slightly better king compared to the game, which was like 10-15 moves ago. But anyway, the white king probably has to always stay on the e file when you need all these checks. King f3, rook a4.
Also, I think very instructive that the way to defend is to keep the rook on the h and the g file and not take it to the flank with a7, a6 check, because then black's king will be able to hide on h7 and you won't be able to defend the h5 pawn. So you need to keep your rook actually behind your own pawn and attack from g1, the g7 pawn.
Yeah, and look at this now. It's very tricky. Yeah, rook g1 check.
So rook g4 and
rook
we
g4,
have
rook h1, it will be already 2 times this position because that was the key position. Now Magnus goes rook g3 check.
Does he want to go king g4, rook h3?
Yeah, well, that's a very logical way of playing. King e2, king g4, I assume.
King g4, king f2.
Rook f3 check and king e2.
The point is that after rook h3, you'll have rook g1 check.
Yeah, always. But these are very, very scary positions for black, and it's understandable that whenever they reach this position, Alexander goes down on the clock because not easy to navigate.
But look at this, Peter. Now the rook is defending the g7 pawn, which means white also has to play moves like king e3. Yes, exactly. How is black going to improve now?
Yeah, that's the problem, that he cannot really improve. Because if you protect the pawn on g7 with the rook, then you can't take on h5. If you protect with the king, then you are not putting enough pressure on the h5 pawn. And somehow this king on e3 is the key. Because it would be so natural to try to run as close as possible, but that would, king g2 would be a losing mistake. Everything on the f file and on the e file, for the moment, it's still fine. Rook e7. This is very interesting psychologically, because now Magnus wants to stop white from getting his king to the e file, but Alexander reacts confidently with rook h2. He's not in Zugzwang.
But now check, you can't go king g2 because of rook f5. You have to go on the e file again, and black does have king g3 now. King g3, rook h1 only move, and it looks like it's so close, but is white still holding this?
Yeah, now rook e7 check, king d3 should be played.
But king d3 then cuts off the king further.
Yeah, but we have seen it already at the start that the white king was there, but black couldn't really make any use of it.
And if black goes king g2 now, do you go rook h4 or do you move away from the h file?
Well, first instinct would be rook h4, but that's why this position is so tricky, because it's not like you can just rely on any feeling.
Yeah, and down to seconds, what is he going to choose? What is Sasha going to play rook h4, or is he going to move it away from the h file? Just very, very difficult to pick. He's gone for rook h4, Peter.
Yeah, rook h4. Otherwise, if you leave the h file, then black would play rook e5 and then rook g5. That might be just a win. So yeah, Magnus wants to give one more check with rook d7. If he can force white's king to the c file, then it should be already enough.
What an incredible fight. Just trying to go step by step, and Sasha making sure you don't push the king further. Rook h3 check. If king g4, you fall back with the rook to h1. If king g2, then rook h4.
Yeah, it's a stunning endgame. Both players are fighting for their life. If Magnus wins this game, then he already kind of qualifies automatically. And if Alexander loses this game, then he's in big trouble. So he has to hold his own in this game.
And it's very difficult to hold these positions in a practical game with seconds, because the positions are so similar. They keep reappearing, but there's one tiny difference on the board, and it messes up the mind as well. And then you miss that one moment and it's all gone.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that's why it's so tough. Many times people forget this, that the modern chess players usually reach these endgames on seconds, and compared to the old times when such positions were heavily analyzed in an adjourned game, and then you could calmly analyze it till the draw, and then basically just playing in a practical game wasn't any real challenge. To hold, now the players with few seconds on the clock are trying to hold things together. It's a completely different planet like this.
So black could just go. How is black improving now? He's gone rook a2, so king e3. But king e3, king g3, rook h1, you still have it because after rook h2, you can
have
go
rook g1 check, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, because the pawn endgame would be lost again. I mean, Magnus is very, very tricky that he is just trying and he is playing all these things and now he's already up 3 minutes plus on his clock. Okay, now he's exactly under 3 minutes, but he always has this extra time, which puts lot of pressure on the opponent.
It's just incredible to see how complex these endgames can be. You know, they're repeating, the position seems similar, but there is always this slight difference, barely any pieces on the board. The pawn structure is fixed, yet there are so many subtleties. And rook g3, Magnus tries a new plan. So what he wants to do is go rook g5, king g3, king g4 now.
Yeah, and okay, look at this, Alexander down to 13 seconds. The rook cannot really, you are like in a Zugzwang now, yeah, that's the problem.
You have to move the king and you can't even go to e3, so you've got to move it. He's gone for king d2. So what happens after rook g5 now? What happens after rook g5, Peter?
Well, you have to go back with your king, yeah?
He's gone king f3 first.
Yeah, rook h1. I mean, white is very happy to bring the rook back to h1. Rook g5.
Rook g5.
Yeah, but the point is that when you have this rook g5, king g4 position, I mean, let's just imagine rook g5, king g4, I can play a move like king e3 because when you take, I give you the check and hit your g7 pawn. So basically, there is physically maybe no way of grabbing this h5 pawn.
Incredible.
Having said that, it's easy, but still, I mean, how you exactly carry it out, it's another. Rook h3 check on
and
the
Sasha
board.
really holding his nerves together in this position. He's been defending for I don't know how many, maybe chat can tell us how many moves it's been. And finally, there is progress, but not the kind that black would like, because now it should be easy enough because there are just 3 files and white just gives checks now and then eventually comes back with the rook and bridges on e file.
Yeah, king g2, rook g7 check.
So king h3. King h3, does white go king d3? He's gone rook g5, so now rook h7.
No, basically, if you go to the h file, then you give up all your winning chances because then my king is close enough.
Yes.
But yeah, this with king on g2 and rook on g5, at least you keep some practical pressure. But I mean, it does look like if this is not a draw, then nothing.
So what does white want to go, rook h7 or go rook a7, king e3? What's the right way?
Well, he went for rook h7.
So if h5, king e3 has to be played?
Then king g3 will be played. And then king e2.
King e2, so you want to get that king on f1 and a rook f5 is, so h4, king f1 now.
Yeah, and now it seems that I'm just in time with king f1 there. Now again, you can, Sasha can look into the camera. I mean, how Magnus feels about this, because now it's the first moment that he's completely safe.
And now just king g1, and there's just no way. This is the dream defense with white. You want your king to come to in front of the pawn, and he's managed to do that. But really, Peter, that was some incredible nerve control by Sasha in a very difficult endgame. With just seconds
absolutely.
On the
Absolutely. And okay, this game had been very, very long, and okay, now it's a draw, and the other players already started round 10. Yeah, there are already action on other boards. So here the game finished in a draw.
And I think we already do have a result. Let's just wait until the players, I think this is it, rook h2 done, and this is a draw. Magnus I think you can feel and see the disappointment in the world champion's face right there on the camera. And let's just do a quick recap of the results. Anish Giri scoring a much needed win to keep any chance at all alive of making it to the quarterfinals, which means that Maxime Vacherlegrave, well, bad news for him that now it's just going to be, I think, perhaps mathematically impossible for him to come back into the top 8. But of course, or maybe not mathematical, but practically. Alexander Grischuk held on a very difficult endgame against Magnus. Hikaru won against David very convincingly. Jan Daniel, an absolutely crazy game. But when these two are playing, you know it's going to be incredibly tough. Jan came on top. Levon Hari was a draw, as was Wesley Raja. Because we've already got action, Peter, let's jump straight to the game. Let's start with Maxime versus Temur Rajabov. Let's just do a quick roundup of the opening and the action on the board.
Yeah, basically, when we look at this position, it's already clear that Maxime knows that he's in an absolutely must-win situation. He goes for the most double-edged kind of structure possible. These are the very, very sharp positions because yeah, black does have these double pawns. White has this lovely outpost for the knight. However, practice has showed that if black gets f6, e5, knight later, something like rook e8, knight f8, knight e6, this might all sound like it takes a lot of time, but believe me, somehow, usually black is in time to get there. And if he gets that, then it's a very, very solid setup. But okay, it does look like white has a good version of the line that usually happen here. Let's see how did they get here. It's typical Rostolimo with bishop b5, e6, b3. Aha, so this move order start. That's how black lost a little bit of tempo. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that this b3 is really that well established. I mean, it's probably a real surprise. d6 takes. e5, white goes for this structure, knight e7, ed6, knight g6, knight a3. This is how they reach this position. These three castles, f6, knight c4, bishop c7. Bishop c7, okay, interesting, which means that Rajabov, okay, Temur wants to make sure that he is in time to activate his queen to d5. If, for example, white plays the move bishop a3, hitting the pawn on c5, then black can defend it with queen d5. And once you put the bishop on a3, it weakens the f4 square. And then black might be jumping on f4 and creating counterplay on the king side. So bishop a3 is played, okay. I mean, it's logical that you can do it, with the idea that maybe after queen d5, Maxime wants to go knight fd2 and challenge the queen on d5 with a queen f3 move, hinting also at knight e4, putting more pressure on the c5 plus. Okay, usually white never wants to take on d5 unless he really wins a clear pawn. White wants to just play this queen f3, knight e4 things. Somehow to me it looks like Maxime is very determined and he knows what he's doing. I mean, because being determined is one thing, but if you know exactly what you are doing and you are determined, this is a very good combo. All
right, Peter, while this position and this game gets into action mode, I think a very important round is for Daniel Dubov, who lost his last game to Jan Nepomniachtchi, so putting his chances in a little bit of a danger. I think a very important game for Daniel against Levon. Let's take a look at that one and see what's going on there. Daniel has just made the move rook c1. He does control the c file. I see a pleasant opening, but now black is threatening to go rook c8 next.
Yeah, these are the openings that they look nice, but black is also very solid. It's difficult to say that how much is disadvantage? Is it symbolic? Now the big question is that the bishop on a6 on one hand looks like it's very well developed because it's active. On the other hand, it's also some kind of a target. White has ideas like queen a4, putting pressure on the bishop, and if you have to retreat the bishop to b7, then maybe some knight b5, trying to use the c7 square. This is this is quite sharp in this regard. Yeah, you cannot make also the natural move rook c8 because it would run into queen a4, hitting the bishop and the pawn. So black needs to show some precision. One of the typical ways is to challenge this powerful bishop on f4 with something like knight h5, because white really needs this bishop in order to...
He's gone bishop b4, so does that mean after queen a4 he wants to go bishop c3?
Yeah, he wants to play, yeah, that's a very nice concrete solution, because then the pawn on e2 is hanging, and you are not in time to take on a6 because of bishop b2. So bishop b4, nicely spotted by Levon. Okay, Levon is also a big maestro of all these Catalans. He has played it all his life with both colors, so he should feel all the nuances.
Bishop b4 is very well timed, taking advantage of the e2 pawn. So what happens if white just defends this? But how do you defend? Do you go bishop f1? Do you go e3?
Yeah, usually e3, then the bishop on f4 is kind of that's scary. Also, there is the typical queen d1 move, but after queen d1, black can probably just insist of playing rook c8. And before white gets the chance of playing a4, knight b5, because that's another typical idea. Because if black would be forced to capture on b5, a b5, that would be really very, very good news for white. But black is in time to go rook c8 and already threatening to capture on c3, destroying white's pawn structure. So queen d1 is not that effective. That's why maybe bishop f1 is like a move, because then after rook c8, you can maybe play the move queen b3 first. But queen b3, you already have time to go queen e7 also, and you have all the harmony.
Instead of queen b3, queen a4, black was just planning to take on c3 and go bishop c4 and say that you can't take on a7 because your queen is horrible there?
Well, I mean, I hoped so, but one thing is hoping, another one to be sure.
It looks like there should be it should be getting trapped, but I'm not sure how that's going to happen. But anyway, even just a move like rook a8 should be good enough because a2 pawn hangs as well.
Yeah, and also in long terms, I mean, I have some lovely position. I mean, knight e4, rook fc8, also grabbing back on a2. I don't think that white wants to get into this sharp things. Black pieces seems to be harmonious enough to be ready for all this.
And Peter, while this is still slow and heating up, but not quite there yet, the one game that does look like it's there is David Anton versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. Still very, very early stages, but I have to say, just first instincts, white is doing well.
Yeah, first thing is that white is doing really well, because I mean, I want to see how we got here. To be honest, it looks quite scary. Knight f3, d6, d4, cd4, queen d4. Yeah, we see quite a lot of this queen takes d4s. Knight f6. However, now David Anton went for this bishop g5, which is quite forgotten. It used to be the old main variation, bishop b5. And here it comes. Because is it here that there is the option of playing queen a5 check? I mean, I'm not an expert of all these things. I never know that when you can play this queen takes b5 idea, when not, because knight takes b5, knight takes d4. I think it's this, maybe exactly like this, knight f d4. And then there was some crazy line like knight takes e4, knight c7 check, king d7, knight takes a8, knight takes g5, something like this was heavily debated few years ago, and I'm not sure at all what the new engine is saying about this, but it was kind of considered to be fine for black. However, as a surprise, and people have probably forgotten, okay, if it's your main repertoire, you have to know all these things, but after bishop b5, if you don't go for this queen a5 check, and if this is exactly the line and I'm not mistaking, not mixing things up, which could easily be, then this is something that white is hoping to achieve in this line. Queen d3, knight b4. Jan is relying on this knight b4. Takes, queen b3, but now you get this damaged damage pawn structure, knight c6, bishop f6, gf6, knight c3, rook c8, knight d5, bishop g7, castles, knight e3. Okay.
I like knight e3, so he's rerouting it to f5. e6 had to be played. Now d6 is weak, so he could just get his rook to d1, rook a d1 maybe, and just start putting pressure. He's gone for rook d1, just very logical play. And I do think, I don't know by how much, but white, I like white here.
No, definitely. I mean, okay, black has a destroyed pawn structure. The bishop on g7 is a terrible piece. I mean, black really needs somewhere to go f5, but he cannot do it because then ef5 destroys his pawn structure. White just stabilize it, and it's also a rapid game where it's very important that white's position is not just pleasant, but thanks to being pleasant, he has very easy play. He just makes all these moves which improve his position, and it's very, very ugly from the black side.
And white can also just think about doubling up on the d file next. So like you're saying, just easy moves to be made and not so clear to understand how Jan plans to. So maybe what Jan wants to do, Peter, is to go knight g6, knight f4.
Yeah, well, I mean, he needs knight e7. I'm not sure if he has anything specific in mind. Maybe somewhere also to play something like rook c5 and then trying to play f5, because this would be ideal to get f5 in so that after ef5 you can recapture with the knight, finally solve this problem of the double pawns, and then eventually play the move d6, d5, and you have a normal position. But this takes so much time, and white only needs one move, maybe something like knight d4, timely knight d4 to stop f5, and then all this doesn't happen. In any case, black had to play the move knight e7 and see how white will react to it.
And he's decided to go for the plan of doubling on the d file and hitting the d6 pawn. And queen c6 played. I'm looking at where we can go, Peter, because again, although this is a very interesting position, I want us to take a look at Daniel's position one more time, because it's quite an important game for him.
Yeah, but okay, he's 50%. I mean, he is not really in a danger of not qualifying. Okay, of course, if he wins this game, then he is in a very good situation. If he doesn't, then he still have to play a black game. But the very sharp game, let's go back to Maxim versus Teimur Rajabov, because look at this. Maxim is in a must-win situation, and the position is completely out of control.
And also just an update, we don't need to go there, but Magnus Hikaru is going to fizzle out into a draw. I think we've seen this opening, we've seen this narrative several times. So this looks like both players would be happy to just end this peacefully. And
yeah, unfortunately we have seen it because the game started later, since Magnus played a very long game against Alexander, and yeah, basically he just doesn't do anything. He just realized that, okay, I'm +1, and it should be enough to qualify. I mean, let's focus on this game, because this looks really sharp.
So a must-win situation for Maxime. And what is the feeling here? I kind of like Raja's position here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the position is so crazy that I still don't even know what's happening, to be honest. It's, I mean, this knight on f4, bishop e5, bishop e6, white knight on h4, knight on f5 gives so many tactical possibilities, so much to calculate before you can finally say that you more or less know what is happening. Black also has somewhere some bishop d5 threat, but still white has the knight e7 check in his pocket. So the big question, yeah, knight e7 check played immediately.
So king h8 has to be played, and he takes on c6. So still bishop d5 can't be played because of knight d8, which hits the queen on f7.
But I'm not sure. Hang on. I mean, this is all very, very dubious. I mean, I don't know. Looking very risky. Okay, so bishop d5, yeah, this is very important that you can take on d8. Rook takes d8, and then
where is your queen going?
Yeah, you put the queen somewhere to g4, and it looks like, okay, black has a move like g5. Then where do you go? But okay, it feels that there should be something. And we are seeing this.
We're seeing it.
This is on the board.
So queen to g4. Can black just... Okay, g5, because I was thinking black also has the option to go h5 here, Peter. Where is your queen going after h5? And by, I mean, Maxime's queen.
Oof, yeah. I mean, I don't know. What Maxim is doing looks very, very risky.
After queen f5, just g6. I don't see a square for your queen. Maybe you have to go knight g6 then.
Yeah, but okay, knight g6 is...
It's sad. It's a sad
I don't believe in it because, okay, black's minor pieces are so powerful. I mean, but where do you go and...
d1, that's the only other square that you have on the board. Queen g3 is met by knight e2 check. So after queen g4, h5, or right now, queen d1 seems like the only other square.
Yeah, but...
But then you move g5 because then you pick up the pawn on g2.
I don't know. This is looking very, very scary. I mean, it feels to me like it's a miracle if it's not lost. And Maxim goes queen g4.
So here both h5 and g5, very tempting options. Peter, after h5, queen d1, how can black continue then? I mean, it looks so scary for white, but how is black finishing? Or is it better to go g5 instead of h5?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really so complicated. The point is that now with okay, one has to be careful because there are also these ideas like knight g2, but after knight g2, queen g6,
F3.
White has the move f3, protecting the knight, and thanks to it, this does not work. So black cannot be in a very relaxed mood in just trying to checkmate the opponent immediately. I mean, it's much more complex. But I mean, it just feels very, very suspicious. Okay, let's try the move g5, right?
Let's go for it. So can white go knight f3? White has to go knight f3.
Have to go knight f3, and if you take knight g2, you have to take on e5. I mean, king g2 runs into g4, so you should take on e5. I take back fe5. And if you take rook e5, I wanted to play a move like knight h4, and I'm coming to f3.
And look what just happened. Let's just get an update on.
Oh wow! Okay, this is brilliant. Yeah, I mean, because all this was way too strange. But after h5, white has this queen takes f4 idea. Okay, it's beautiful. Bishop f4, rook e7. However, I mean, white is still risking somehow. I mean, this ducks. I mean, the two bishops and the knight on h4 is so ugly. Maxim in trouble here.
Yeah, because I mean, I get it that you can't go queen f8, but what about just queen g8? You're saying that knight g6, you pick up the bishop on f4, and that's what the point is, right?
No, actually, I thought that I can just give back my queen and I will rely on the two bishops, but then I realized that in fact this pawn on d4 and a7 both are hanging, so I cannot just play for total domination.
But also, Peter, after queen e7, bishop e7, there are two ideas, right? The rook is attacked and the knight g6 threat.
Exactly. I mean, here there is this double attack with knight g6 and the rook is hanging. And if I play a move like rook c8, then you take and you start collecting my pawns and okay, so you say thank you very much.
Pawn as well. But what about if black just falls back with the queen? I don't know what. Maybe you can also go bishop h2 and then go queen g8 because at least you pick up a pawn. But I'm not sure about that because you give white a move. What about just queen g8 here?
Well, queen g8 is such an ugly move that...
But there's no other square. I mean, the queen has literally no square.
Yeah, but I want to give this queen back. I mean, I don't want to have the queen. But yeah...
He starts with bishop h2.
Timur goes for bishop h2 and then queen g8. Maybe it's fine. And it's important that you destroy a little bit white's stable king side.
But I was just wondering if this gave white the tempo of going knight f5, but maybe that's not such a big problem.
Yeah, because
I don't know,
knight
how's black
f5,
responding after knight f5?
maybe I have the move queen h7, no? This makes a lot of sense, and it gives me immediately harmony because my queen comes to g6 and I'm hitting the g2 pawn.
That's a nice point. It's a very nice
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, so actually, and this is then why this was so important, bishop takes h2, because knight g6 check, king h7, knight f4 probably runs into somewhere, some check along this on e5 or somewhere. It's still not so easy, but...
You know, actually, Peter, looking at this, maybe white should in any case go knight g6, knight f4.
Yeah,
Even
but Maxim played the move rook e1. He brings the rook first.
Okay.
I mean, he wants to make sure that queen h7 is not possible, but I mean, queen h7, let's just try this. If queen h7, you give the check, then takes, bishop g8 is probably perfectly fine for black. In fact, it should be winning because the next move you open up the queen. In this case, after rook a1, queen h7, you have to rely on activity. Yeah, he wants to take on a7 and then trying to double. I don't know exactly.
So rook a7, anyway, queen c2, right?
Yeah, queen h7 on the board.
Does white have time to go rook e8, trade off the rooks and put pressure on the g7 pawn after you go bishop g8? With bishop f8, rook e7, or is that too slow?
Bishop f8, yeah?
I'm trying to get bishop g7 in, but...
Yeah, well, it's maybe a nice idea.
So okay. Queen c2, should we try queen c2, rook e7?
Yeah, rook e7. I wonder, is there any mate? If I want to be solid with black, maybe I can take on f2.
Bishop g7?
But then you have perpetual check already at least, yeah? Because bishop g7, king h7, bishop f8 is... but bishop f8, I have bishop f7. It's not yet so easy, and bishop takes
maybe
f6.
Bishop f6?
I go king h6.
This is interesting. So the point is that now how can white do? Bishop g7, you go king g5, knight f3, you go king g6. No, what happens after knight f3?
Yeah, this is all, it's very...
Because okay, I can also just take back on d4 after knight f3.
Yeah, no, this I cannot allow. Yeah, this is all very sharp. Anyway, okay, the g7 pawn should be guarded somehow because this is the vital pawn. So bishop g8, bishop f8, yeah?
Not so easy to understand how to defend the g7 pawn.
Okay, queen h6 I can do.
Let's try that. So let's say that white insists. If rook e7, queen f4, do I have time for g3?
Well, then I already take on f2.
You take with a check, and let's say no, because white could also move. Okay, you don't have king h1. You have to go king h3 only.
No, you know, my only problem with this position is that actually Maxim needs a win. So whenever I see that black is kind of safe, I lose the interest because, okay, I'm so-called rooting for Maxim to create chances to fight back in the tournament. On the other hand, maybe Rajabov just has everything under control. And if Rajabov wins this, then he qualifies automatically because then he will be +2. Very, very nice qualification. So lot at stake. Maxim has to somehow try to gamble, but I mean, he was gambling and this is what he got.
Just an incredible position and very important game. And it's definitely a game that's going to end in a decisive result, and whichever side wins, I mean, Rajabov, like you said, just confirms his spot, and Maxim still not clear, even if a win would be enough, but he at least needs to do that to even dream about it, to qualify.
Yeah, because he needs to win his last 2 games. And okay, it's all not so easy. And look at this, we have been little bit thinking two way ahead, and Magnus said, you know what, yes, it's true, I wanted to play solid, but I did not want to make a quick draw at all. We got fooled by this opening of seeing another rook e1 Berlin. It just fitted into the picture that of course it's gonna be another very quick draw, but Magnus somehow managed to I don't know how he did it. What did he do? In any case, in this seemingly completely drawn position, he relies on the fact that he has the slightly better bishop, he has the slightly better pawn structure, with the pawn on f3 against this ugly knight on f6, and the knight on d2. And look at this, he creates step by step his chances. And the real point is that, yeah, if white would exchange his rooks with, the rooks with rook takes e8, then it's pretty drawish. But Magnus keeps this last final tension in the position. He moves the rook away and starts pushing his queenside pawns. Black brings the knight to d6. It's all correct, but black is doomed to passivity. And one can argue that, yeah, this is not much. On the other hand, I'm not sure we have seen white ever really reaching any such position in this rook e1 line in the tour so far. So Magnus does have some pressure. On the other hand, Hikaru is famous of holding any of these slightly worse positions very comfortably. And let's jump back because, okay, this is not so exciting. Magnus trying to massage Hikaru.
You know, Peter, I'm just looking at the cam of the players and what you mentioned. Magnus does look like, of course, he's on holiday at an undisclosed location. Not really sure where, but somewhere by the beach side. And you can, he does look a little, I don't really know, but a little beat, actually.
Well, what I have seen yesterday, he did not look fresh. He didn't look like in the state, that you really need to start winning all your games. But okay, this is Magnus, and he has been talking about being critical of his own play, but he's still leading the field. Okay, now Hikaru is the one who has +2 and Magnus is on +1, but basically the important thing in the preliminaries is to qualify, and a completely new tournament starts in the knockout stages.
And we're being confirmed by the producer that he's not beat down or anything, he's just sunburned. It's just a lot of time by the beach.
Yeah, and this is always very, very tricky. If the sun hits you, it doesn't matter who you are. You cannot fight the sun. That's just a very unfair struggle.
And look at this, how Maxime is trying to keep his chances alive. Like you said, he decides not to trade off a pair of rooks, but takes on a7. And what's going on here now? Not so clear.
Yeah, not clear at all. Okay, somehow one has the feeling that with this very nice bishop on d5, now he moves it to c6, opening up the rook. He wants to go rook d7, covering the g7 pawn, because if black does cover the g7 pawn, then there is nothing to talk about. It's just a matter of time till black gonna win the game. Rook d7, then you go king h7, you kick the rook away from the 7th, you go g5, and basically white has nothing else than to resign if you get that all together. So Maxim in a lot of trouble, which would mean that he loses a second game in a row, and he loses all his even mathematical chances of fighting in the last round for qualification. Meanwhile, actually a big turnaround in the game, David Anton versus Jan Nepomniachtchi, because humanly to me it looks like black is already perfectly fine. Nothing to worry about, and we have been actually quite optimistic about David Anton's chances after the opening. So Jan is out of danger here. And we have a crazy game. Yeah, let's take a look at Anish Giri, because this game started late. Anish, with the white piece, he still feels like in a must-win situation. And look at the position. If you look at what has happened, you understand exactly that white was not interested in playing any objective, normal chess. He wanted to keep as much tension as possible, but Alexander has played everything in the spirit. Played this a5, a4. This is the way to fight against white setup. I believe that those who had joined us for the Speed Chess Championship, there was a game between Hikaru Nakamura, Wesley So, where Wesley has beaten, or at least played a very nice, I don't remember how that game ended, but played a model game against Hikaru in this structure from the black side. And yeah, he did win. Yeah, now I remember that he did win. He took the lead with that game, but after then Hikaru bounced back And I mean, I just love the position from the black side, so I'm maybe not being objective here. I just feel that so far what black has done, that's exactly what you have to do, and it's a model game.
Well, Anish needs to find his chances, and it does look like the kind of dream position that black aims for. So while Anish has a think on how he wants to continue after bishop b6, I'm also keeping an eye out on the Daniel game. And I know it looks slow, but I have to say, Peter, that with the queen on c6 for Daniel, it looks like perhaps white has a slight nagging edge in this position.
Yeah, let me go there. This is the position. So queen on c6, bishop on h6. But look at this incredible powerful knight on e4. Yeah, white also has the dream knight on d3. That's true. Black plays the move king f7. Bishop h6. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that the bishop on h6 stops any kind of h5, h4, which is a typical way of playing. And okay, please tell me why you think white is having any chances here.
Well, I just felt the pieces were better placed, and it was just a first sight think with the queen on c6. Could perhaps enter with queen a8 earlier before king f7. Black couldn't have gone queen c7 because of queen e8 check. And there are the two bishops. It's not really clear how the white light square bishop will come into play, but the double bishop advantage as well. So looked like a nagging edge for white, but I'm getting the feeling that you like black's position here.
Well, I mean, no, not particularly. I mean, what you are saying is absolutely right, that white has his own trumps, but somehow it also feels that black's position is very, very solid. Yeah, it's after f3, always black has the chance of simply going back to f6 and rely on the fact that you have, but look at this. This is very interesting. Daniel played the move h3, and after seeing h3, bishop h6 combined with h3 makes a lot of sense. Spices things up, because usually after h3 you would love to have the move h5, and after hg is like a typical scenario, you keep your structure, but now basically one of black's pawn might be isolated, which gives new prospects.
I really like the move h3 because after hg4, fg4, suddenly this light squared bishop can become very powerful with e3, bishop e2, and not so clear how you'll end up defending the g pawn. For example, just to show that if black was to trade queens with queen c7, he's gone for knight f6, so now you could have just taken and traded on g4. So black could potentially come in a bit of trouble with the g4 pawn, which is why he decides to go knight f6 so that he can recapture with the knight on g4.
Yes, yeah, but definitely, I mean, h3 very well spotted that this bishop h6, yeah, queen on c6, bishop h6, and somewhere something. Of course, as commentators, we cannot always see everything. We are jumping from one game to another, but very well spotted that white has some initiative compared to the usual scenarios. However, now after bishop g5, does black really get the chance of playing h5, or is this pin so unpleasant that you might have to watch out? I mean, what happens if I play the move h5?
I don't see a direct way of making use of the pin because knight e5 is still not possible, and bishop f6, you have king f6. So if there are any tactics, at least I can't spot them instantly.
Yeah, h5 is on the board. However, now this bishop on g5 is okay. Black wants to move the queen somewhere and then jump back to e4 now that he solved this problem of getting his pawn to h5. So very interesting if Daniel down to 3 minutes will he able to find the way to increase the pressure, because just you give two moves for black and it feels like black should be perfectly fine.
Also very important, Peter, that after a move like queen a8, all the squares on the king side are covered by the knight. So white doesn't have the move queen h8 trying to put pressure on black's king side.
Yeah, this is a very nice point, yeah, because usually something like this would be really annoying with the pin, but the knight on g6 does a great job. Yeah, h takes g4, h takes g4 played.
In such a position, even if black was to trade the queens with c7, I think the ending should be absolutely fine for black.
Yeah, the endgame should be absolutely fine, yeah. I mean, white has to combine if he wants something out of the position. On the other hand, if you don't trade and black, and this basically indicates that Daniel understood that he has nothing in the position and he kind of forces the draw, because after all these trades, opposite colored bishop position appeared. There is no chance for any of the sides to make any real progress.
All right, so while this game looks like it's going to end in a draw, Peter, let's quickly jump to the
Okay, yes, let's jump there.
The Maxime Raja game. So rook g8, the rook on g3 is pinned, the rook on e7 is under attack. He could not have taken because of knight g6 check earlier.
Let's just show this, that this was actually quite a nice idea from Maxime. I mean, Maxime is also down to 30 seconds. He knows that, I mean, he needs to win this game, but I mean, objectively, probably he's lost. So rook g3 check. I mean, queen d6 check was answered by rook g3. Black cannot take the rook because knight g6 is forking. So rook g8 played, bishop e3 played, and now black would love to play the move king h7, but it runs into knight f5. So black has to still be careful.
That's a very nice point, because then you can potentially end up picking. Then you actually do end up picking the g7 pawn after queen b8, a move like.
Yeah. Or, I mean, basically, if you get king h7, knight f5, then black's position just collapses automatically. Yeah. After bishop e3, now black has, I don't know, g5. If g5 doesn't lose on the spot, then it's quite nice. But also g5 is met by knight f5 and all kinds of, okay, queen d5 would be the move to avoid any kind of rook h3 because I hit on g2. And if I manage to dislocate your knight from f5, then I feel that I have everything under control. But for the moment, it does feel that this is a bit shaky. And
it's got g6 instead.
Yeah, Timur went g6. Yeah, very nice move, because as we spoke, the 7th rank is so important. If he gets rook g7 in and gets then his king to h7, then everything is under control. Yeah, Maxime moved rook h, and the rook was hanging on e7. Yeah.
After g6, the rook hangs because you don't have a fork on g6 anymore. So rook a7. Now the only thing is that the king on h8 is a little stuck, which black has to be careful about.
Yeah, and let's just show this incredible trick, because I was talking about rook g7 in general terms, and I realized that it runs into, blundering the queen. Black has to be careful, and yeah, of course, Timur knows what he's doing. He's playing this game, so he played the move bishop e4, taking control over the f5 square and f4 on the board.
Oh, that's really nice. So bishop e4 was with the idea to go rook g7 next, try and free up the king as well as trade the rook by keeping the knight f5 check under threat. f4 played. Does that mean that after rook g7, he wants to trade and go f5? But then you have g5, so you can't really trade.
Yeah, you can't really trade. Yeah, Maxime goes for rook a4. It's a trick. I mean, this rook a4 gives some hope. Yeah, queen e6. Can he somehow make use of the disharmony of whites? Yeah, bishop d4.
And Maxime down to 23 seconds and Raja with 53 seconds on the clock. And look at the two players just completely focused. Maxime knows that this is the game. This is whatever chances he has, it's right now. Bleak, but whatever is there, he needs to win this. And objectively, it's perhaps just lost, Peter?
Yeah, it doesn't look good, but okay, there are still some practical chances. Yeah, rook a5. He's trying to insist maybe on f5, spoiling the pawn structure somewhere, some knight take g6 trick, and then follow it up by f5. But I mean, it does feel that if black is careful, and okay, basically Timur is known to be, and look at this, Timur offers the repetition of moves. Yeah, he knows that the draw actually suits him perfectly fine.
And more importantly, he knows that a draw doesn't suit Maxime at all. So even if it's the best decision on the board, anything else that he will do will only make it worse for Maxime. Maxime has to keep the game going. He has these two a2, b3 pawns. At some point, he's got to try and push these pawns. but not easy with that queen on e6.
Yeah, not easy at all. Okay, somehow the question is, yeah, can black get his pieces out? I mean, this rook from g7, if it moves away, and yeah, finally now the rook moves away. But at the same time with b4, white made a huge progress. Yeah, b4, a4, now white starts to push. And look at this, it looks like white has a bad structure. On the other hand, this bishop e3, pawn f4, knight h4, rook g3, protect white's king very nicely. It hints at the g6 pawn. Yeah, queen d1, yeah, black has to activate. And in fact, yeah, black has all the ideas of trying to checkmate on h1 white's king. Queen b1 played, now rook d1 is a threat. And yeah, it's still not easy to see how white should try to create any chances. I mean, okay, it's he's in fact in trouble, but he needs to win.
Rook d1 is a big threat, and that makes you think about the move rook d4 to intercept it. But even then, you just trade, you pick up, and trading of rooks means you're giving up all your chances to win. So he goes bishop c1, but what happens after rook d1 now?
Well, probably a rook check first, and then you kind of have to make an ugly decision.
Rook c3.
Whether
you still have rook c3, rook gc3.
Yeah, you also have rook gc3, but I mean, first you give a bishop c2 played. This is very nice because I mean, if you take you take on a4. Now these two pawns are, I mean, white's pass pawns are destroyed, and you captured one of them. You are still materially up. There are no threats against black's king. It looks like, okay, black should be winning, and also quite safely winning. Queen takes b4, another pawn has fallen. Rook c4. I mean, white will need his bishop on the diagonal somehow, but it's very difficult to get there, because now the only weak spot is the f6 pawn, and if somehow white would be able to create some attack on the long diagonal, then the king on h7 with even something like knight f3. Imagine a bishop on a1, white bishop on a1, then some knight g5 check, fg5, rook h8, checkmate scenarios are possible. But in order to have any of those dreams, you need a bishop on the long diagonal. f5 played. But what is f5? f5, g5,
like
knight g6.
Knight g6, but rook h8 is still not made. So the idea is to go rook h8 and get the other rook to c8.
Yeah, but now also if black just wants to be super solid, he takes on f5 and...
so queen f5, knight f8.
Yeah, king g7.
Takes on d7, you have to take with the bishop.
And I take with the bishop, yeah. And okay, I'm just basically technically winning, and I'm not risking anything. I put my king on g6, push h4, queen e5 check, activate the bishop, and usually I should be able to convert this position quite easily. And in fact, white is the one who needs to win desperately. Yeah, now black just wants to get the king to g6. Yeah, rook d4, stopping any kind of check, because black needs, I mean, if black gets his queen to the long diagonal with a check and activates the bishop, then it's game over. So white has to make sure that this does not happen.
But still, it does look like Raja is the one who's trying now, Peter, which is ban bishop g5. What is that? If fg5?
Yeah, then rook d5 and you escape to a draw probably. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it would have been the desired result for Maxim, I would have been screaming that, wow, it's fantastic, it's great. But like this, I didn't really...
d5. Maybe rook d5, Peter. Yeah, that's the point, that now he's threatening rook d6 and rook d7.
Exactly, but I mean, okay, just to hold, somehow to survive. Okay, white escapes, but it doesn't give him anything. That's it. Okay, this game gonna be ending in a draw.
So while this game is going to end in a draw, the other player who has kept his chances, this means it is the end of the road for Maxime. We're still not sure. I'll get a confirmation if there are any chances of him making it into the quarters, going into the last round. But the one player who's keeping his chances alive is Anish Giri. So yes, you have that on the screen, Peter. King F1 played. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's a very big strategical battle. I mean, it does look like black achieved a lot, but also white has achieved a lot. This bishop on b4, cemented by the pawn on a3, the rook on c3, c1, targeting the weakness on c6. Somehow it feels like black is a little bit stuck. Yeah, rook g6 played. I'm not entirely sure that you do this when you are so happy.
And I look at the screen, Peter, Maxime, Raja have both gotten up, which means the game is over, and it has in fact ended in a draw. A disappointing result overall, a disappointing preliminary for the French number one. And yes. All right, let's get back to this game.
Yeah, and what I wanted to say and what I was saying that rook g6 is a move which is slightly, you know, it shows that black doesn't have a clear plan. And when you are down to 2.5 minutes, not to have a real plan is not ideal. On the other hand, maybe black simply signals that, you know, I have a very solid position, and if I'm not spoiling anything, I'm not falling for any kind of provocation, then please show me how you're gonna improve. Important to note that black does not want to capture on e3, because after f takes e3, then white would have the idea of d4, d5 using the pin. And that might turn out to be really devastating. So this is what Alexander has to avoid. Now Anish plays the move rook c3 to c2. Basically also saying that, okay, you don't have any next move, then let me just keep the position and force you to think.
And that sounds like Anish's dream position, no? Where you're completely safe and you've got this slight pressure on. Your opponent doesn't have a clear plan. I think this would be exactly what Anish would be aiming for here, these kind of positions.
Yeah, I mean, okay, he was taking some risk in the opening. I have been talking about this, that it felt to me like what Alexander was doing was very nice. But finally, look at this. It also meant that Anish kind of felt that he still has everything under control, yeah, because at some point we saw this damaged pawn structure. Yeah, let me just quickly show the position on move 19. This is the position that we had in mind, and it felt like black has everything under control, and it seems like Anish has foreseen that all these sequence exchange things are kind of forced, and he will activate his bishop, and he will get the grip on the position. So it was a very, very nice distant judgment by Anish. And this is how the players got to this position.
He is very strong in such strategic positions and just seems to find the right places for his pieces. But now the question is, Peter, he's done everything that he could to get, you know, the kind of position that he wants. Black is stuck, no plan. Black's made that clear with a move like King H7 that he's just waiting for Anish to do something. But what is that something? Or is it just a position where Anish has all the control, but very difficult to find a way to improve? And he says G4 is the way, because that's a committal move for sure. So Anish is making his intentions very clear.
Yeah, I think very important to note that the point is that white actually would love to, I mean, not love, but would be quite tempting to play like this, but it runs into this tactical possibility of c6, c5, because bishop takes c5 runs into rook fc6, pinning the rook and winning material. That's the justification behind black just waiting here and white not being able to capture on d4, because if you capture on d4, you have to follow it up with bishop c5, and this is probably not the idea what Anish has in mind, because he wants to keep as much tension in the position as possible. G4. I think that G4 is now actually preparing to get into some endgame. Yeah, now Alexander takes on E3.
Does he want to? So he's gone rook E6, keeping the D4 idea under control. If you play D4 now, the E4 pawn hangs, and I'm getting an update that there's something very drastic happened in the Hikaru game, Peter. Can we just jump to that for just a moment?
Yeah, bishop d5 played. Okay, if it's drastic, it means that the pawn endgame is, which seems to be perfectly fine for black, is lost. Yeah, rook d7, because then you can take and the king comes and it's in time. Very hard to believe, but...
So what you're saying is that after...
Yeah, first he waits. Yeah, with rook d8.
And black can't go rook d1, bishop b3, because you trade and you go a6, a7, and there's no way to fight that from queening. And that's Hikaru Nakamura shaking his head. Maybe just quickly we'll take a look at what went wrong. Everything was under control, but something collapsed. But let's stick with the...
I mean, sorry, it's not the point. The point is that he plays a6, and after c3 he can already take everything, because then he queens with the check. Yeah, so the move rook d8 was probably missed by Hikaru. He simply judged that rook d7 is not dangerous because in the pawn endgame he is exactly in time, and in fact it would be bad for white. But this rook d8, and suddenly he just almost feels like he wins on the spot. Yeah, rook takes d5.
So actually, Peter, bishop d5 was a big blunder. His bishop was on c4, keeping the a6 square under control. And bishop d5 just loses on the spot, and Hikaru just gets up. He's resigned. Yes, because rook d5, like you pointed out, white queens with a check. All right, we've got no time to take a breather on this one. So let's go back to the Anish game, Peter.
Yes, I just show that, yeah, this is check. So a great win for Magnus, and in fact, yeah, sluggishness, tiredness, whatever, Magnus is +2 leading the field. I mean, just a brilliant performance. I mean, result-wise, it's another thing that, yeah, Magnus is never satisfied, but I mean, +2 and first place, easy qualification is all you need. Rook c2.
And whenever there's a Hikaru Magnus matchup, it always does feel extremely exciting. It brings back the memories of the final from the first tour as well. And there's always a lot of excitement when these two play each other. So yeah, that ended in Magnus's favor. And like you pointed out, even despite not really feeling his rhythm, the world champion with +2. And we always see that. He complains about his form, and then the worst thing that happens is that he'll finish second or third in the qualifying table.
Yes, and we see that everyone else is always suffering as well to qualify. I mean, it's just a super strong field. Very, very... Only that people got used to this, yeah, that Magnus Carlsen plays and then wins. It's not that easy, and it's nice to see him suffer as well. I mean, we all know this feeling that usually playing chess is nice, it's great, but it's never easy. Only when Magnus plays, it looks so easy, and it's so nice to see when he's also suffering.
And currently, he's the sole leader. He leads with +2 the field going into the quarterfinals with 1 game remaining, so which means that he's booked his spot in the top 8.
Yeah, now we see that Anish has to win. Yeah, and it's a draw. Yeah, there is just no way to break through. Very nicely played by Alexander. I mean, it was easy to panic but this takes on e3 and placing the rook on e6, getting super stability, just blocked white. And what also very important, that what you do, and all his last moves he just blitzed out, and he was already like 3 minutes on the clock. Anish didn't feel that he has any practical chances, which actually means that Anish is done to, I mean, he's stuck on -1, and he will play his last game with the black pieces.
Anish will play his last game with the black pieces. And Peter, I'm looking at our standing board right now. Magnus Carlsen leads with 6 points. I think he's safely into the quarterfinals. And then we've got a pack of wolves from the 2nd to the 6th place with 5.5 points. Hikaru, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Levon Aronian, Wesley So, and Temur Rajabov at 5.5. And then Peter, take a look at this. From 7th to 8th place is Daniel Dubov and Grischuk at 5. Right behind Anish and Hari. So really, the last round, anything can happen, and there is a big chance for Anish and or Hari to leapfrog either Grischuk or Dubov because there's just a half-point difference between them. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave at 4, I think there's just no way that he can make it into the quarters anymore, just theoretically. And Anton with 3.5, it's the end of the road for these two. But Anish and Hari, and who are they playing? Anish is playing Hikaru, so that's not going to be an easy round for Anish at all. But Hikaru has just lost his game against Magnus. Will Hikaru be able to just come back and forget that defeat, or will Anish be able to make the most of the moment where Hikaru is perhaps feeling a bit shaken up? And I didn't check, but who was Hari playing? If we can just have the screen back.
Hari plays with Rajava with the black piece. Is also very, very tough to win. But at least, you know, he has to try everything. He has nothing to lose, because if he does not win, then definitely he will not have a chance to qualify. And okay, has to go all in and see what happens.
Has to go all in. So let's just recap this really quickly. We've got one more game remaining, the final game where everything's at stake, and the real fight is between Daniel Dubov, Alexander Grischuk, who are on 5 points and currently in the 7th and 8th spot. And right behind them at 4.5 is Anish and Hari Krishna. Very important for these two players to leapfrog either Daniel or Sasha to make it into the quarters. Peter, this is reminding me of that story about you know, how a lion is chasing a few people and they're running, but it's not about trying to come first in that race, but really about just trying to go ahead of the first person. So here Daniel Dubov and Raja are just saying, you know what, we're not trying to come first. We just need to stay ahead of Sasha and of Anish to get our spot into the quarters. A very exciting matchup coming our way, Peter.
Yeah, very dramatic last round. I mean, just imagine, before the previous round, Hikaru was leading the tournament with +2. Now he lost his +1, and Anish has to try to win on demand with the black pieces. And if, for example, Anish would manage to do this, which is of course like a Hercules task, it's very tough. But if he manages, then he jumps back to 50% and brings down Hikaru to 50% as well, which would mean, I believe that 50% is definitely not enough for everyone to qualify. It would be some big tie, and then we would see all these dramatic tie breaks that we have seen in the Skilling Open. I mean, even Hikaru is suddenly not in a safe spot.
Hikaru's at 5.5 currently, though, so he's definitely one of the players who's feeling a lot safer. I really still think it's between these four guys, but anything can happen. A very exciting round coming our way. After yesterday's many draws, Peter, we could not have asked for a more thrilling final round of the preliminary. And with all the excitement and the action in the chess world, we've been seeing so much interest in our game. We've been seeing so many people taking on chess and getting into it. So we asked our participants and our players what would be their top tips to beginners and everyone who's just getting into the game. Take a look at what they had to say.
I think you have to do it consistently. Slowly but surely you'll see yourself progress, but you need some patience.
Have fun playing chess. If you don't have fun, it's not worth it.
You should find a basic chess book, and then you should learn the chess notation. There are 64 squares on the board, so you should learn the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 notation.
All these exciting books like Nimzovich My System. There are like 60 favorable games by Fischer.
Chess Openings, Traps, and Zaps by Bruce Pandolfini.
The first things you should think of is checks and captures. And it's an easy thing to forget. But once you have that sort of installed in your brain, you will automatically play quite a bit better.
Don't blunder. Even at the very highest level, games a lot of the time are decided by blunders, and at the beginners level it's just 100% of games are decided by blunders. So just don't blunder and you immediately would be a very advanced player, but it's easier said than done.
Hello and welcome to the sneak peek video on the lifetime repertoires The Knight of Sicilian. In this video, I'm going to show you my latest course, which is a complete repertoire against 1e4, with the Najdorf Sicilian defense. Why the Najdorf? Well, it is one of the, if not the best opening you can play against 1e4. It is both very correct, very sound, also very aggressive, gives you plenty of opportunities to play for a win. And the only problem is that you need to study quite a bit of theory. But for that, there is this course. Isn't it wonderful? Let's look into it. There are here 27 chapters. The whole course is 1,000, close to 1,000 trainable lines, and the length is around 24 hours. So you can basically binge watch the course in just 24 hours if that's your priority. But realistically, I guess you need a couple of days and and you're done. More importantly, there is the quick starter guide. That is a short summary of all you have to know to start, and that is barely over an hour. I would add to that a couple of chapters, especially against the bishop e3 line, which would also be another hour. And I think within a couple of hours, you are ready to start your Najdorf journey. But then, of course, check out all the chapters. There's lots of detail there. When you play the Najdorf, you are quite invincible. It's a very big theoretical battlefield. You can vary within it. You can deviate, always improve, always on the analysis. And so, yeah, Najdorf, I think, is a little too rich. So I don't really feel targeted there. And I think that's also a good reason why you should be playing the Najdorf. So yes, alternatives, bishop e7, bishop e6, for example, move with a bad reputation, but I give some options. Even within the alternatives, there are sometimes alternatives, which is quite cool. Also, against some lesser known options, for example, against 6 rook g1, I also give alternatives, because in rook g1, for example, in particular, there is the system with e5, knight b3, bishop e6, which is the main line, and that main line equalizes but leads to an endgame, equal endgame. And of course, I know my my Najdorf boys and girls, they want a sharp play, and next to this main line, I decided not to be lazy and also recommend another line. For example, the in this case, it's the h5 variation here, which is a lot more fighting, can lead to much sharper positions, like this one, typical Najdorf here. We've got opposite castles incoming, very sharp positions. So yeah, lots of options, and still, despite all that, the sides became quite manageable. So I'm very happy with that. Also, of course, sidelines are well covered. Bishop b5 check. You know, if you don't have a chapter on bishop b5 check, then I don't think you can claim to have a Najdorf repertoire, because bishop b5 check is such an integral part of the Najdorf. A lot of trainable lines, a lot of memorization. A lot of my variations are more fine-tuned for a top-level chess. But here I'm going for much more playable, much more flexible positions where there is a lot of room for a lot of room for creativity, much more flexibility there. So yeah, I think a good repertoire will have a fun community. I'm sure lots of you will ask me a bunch of questions, and yeah, I'm very happy with what I've done. I believe there is no need when you have a course like that, there is no need to compromise on anything. The lines are all sound, correct, well tested with the strongest engines, and also fitted for the for your regular chess fan. So yeah, I think this should be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to hear your feedback, and I'm sure you'll really enjoy the course. So thank you for watching the sneak peek, and get your course. Also enjoy, of course, the short and sweet. If you're doubting, that's also going to be a nice little free course for you. But I would like to say, of course, if you enjoy it, you should definitely check out the actual course, the lifetime repertoires, and yeah, I hope you'll find it worthwhile and you will enjoy it as well. So thank you for watching, and bye bye.
Welcome back. We are about to lift off a very critical game, and this is the one. It is Hikaru Nakamura with the white pieces taking on Anish Giri. If Anish wins, it is an absolute mess. On tie breaks everywhere, the number of players on the same points. We are in for a show. We do have liftoff, Peter. So what do you think about this opening choice by Hikaru, playing e6, and Anish thinking, because he's definitely surprised with this?
Well, I mean, the point is that Hikaru was obviously going to play the move e4. This is what he's relying on, but Anish definitely wanted to go c5, knight f3, and Anish could not play his knight off. He would have loved to play the knight off, but it was clear that Hikaru would play his beloved bishop b5 check, which serves him so well in all these rapid formats. So Anish played the move e6 just to avoid any kind of force lines. And after e6, Hikaru said, no, I don't want to play any open Sicilian. Let me play a structure, g3, knight c6, bishop g2, knight f6. But it does give me the feeling that maybe Anish will get a game. I mean, especially after d3, this is, okay, at least certainly something that Black, if he's in a must-win situation, should look forward to. No exchanges. Big mess on the board. Let's fight. Let's fight. And usually I would say that Hikaru is very, very dangerous in all these King's Indian attack positions. But the psychological situation is different because Hikaru only needs a draw to qualify smoothly. And this King's Indian attack, which comes also usually from the Reti, then requires some incredible aggressive play from white side, taking a lot of risks, and will be very interesting to see how Hikaru handles this situation.
And I think Hikaru is showing his intentions with the solid structure, like you're saying. He didn't go for the open Sicilian, and he's gone for this. So he's saying, you know what, I'm going to play it safe. But the one other player who can't afford to play it safe, Peter, is Hari Krishna. He's playing against Rajabov in the same situation as Anish to have any chances at all. He needs to beat Raja. He is. And I see that it was a semi-Slav. And this opening and the position that we currently have on the board, it's wild already.
Yes, and let's see how did the players get there. It was c6, bishop g5. So basically Rajabov is ready for a opening duel, I would guess. But look at this, Hari goes for d takes c4, so ready to go for the Botvinnik. And Rajabov says, no, I don't want any Botvinnik in this last game. a4, b5, a b5, c b5 played. I even don't know this theory. Do you know this, Tania?
I'm actually not able to see it on my screen currently, Peter, so you'll have to just...
Okay. Yeah, because the whole point is that I think all the world knows that after d takes c4, white, of course, usually plays the move e4, b5, e5, h6, bishop h4, g5, knight takes g5, a g5, bishop g5, knight bd7, and we are in this incredible big Botvinnik tabia. But after the move d takes c4, suddenly the move a4 is not that critical. On the other hand, it's an existing possibility, not allowing all these sharp lines. But after b5, all this line is already known for those who play this opening. I'm not a specialist.
Yes, now I have it back, Peter, and I believe after knight b5, queen b6, the way to go is knight a3 and queen b2. Is that correct? And this is something that we've seen Shirov play as well. He's got knight c3 though here. So does Black still take on b2?
I don't know. I guess, but yeah, you really, and I was very happy that you immediately said that, yeah, Shirov games with knight a3, because as a clear d4 player, you know these things better. So you said that you have remembered some games of Shirov, yeah, with knight a3.
I think this is knight a3 and then you take on b2. And I am being confirmed by the producer as well that yes, Shirov has played it with Black, and but knight c3 I'm not very familiar with. Like you pointed out, e4 is something that we've seen a lot more often.
Yes, the big question for me is that, is Rajabov familiar with all this? or did he simply not expect the Botvinnik and then he needed to decide over the board how to handle it? Okay, Rajab is such a big opening expert that I would believe that he must have studied this, especially because I believe the only recent game that I can recall on A4 is that was something like between Dubov and Anish Giri in the Moscow Grand Prix in 2018, I think. And in this regard, it's fashionable for the top guys. I mean, they have to know, they are following all these things. And rook c1, knight d5 on the board. Well, black challenges the knight on c3. This is a very nice blockading knight. And if white, with the black knight on f6, would be able to play e4 and get his game going, then white would have incredible initiative. So it's very logical for black to challenge white's position immediately before he gets all what he wants. And the c3 knight is slightly loose. I mean, white has to keep this c3 square because thanks to this c3 outpost, he's holding, I mean, he has this lovely compensation.
And of course, now the question is, Peter, how is white going to react? Because again, after knight c3, he's, you know, the point of knight a3 return is that you're constantly eyeing the c4 pawn. But now with knight c3, this knight is loose. Do you take on d5, which looks, I'm not sure if that's the move that comes to our mind, because you open the bishop on c8. You also, he's gone for it after ed5. Black is able to solidify the c4 pawn. But the thing is that now white has some tempos. So he's got to make the most of the fact that black's queen on b2 is rather exposed. He goes for rook b1 immediately. And black has to go queen to a3 or queen a2. Is there a difference?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. First of all, a draw suits Rajabov perfectly. So if he finds a way just to repeat and force black to repeat, that's already a perfectly doable scenario for white. We have also seen the previous game, Rajabov, despite having very, very good winning chances against Maxim, he preferred to be solid. He didn't take any risk. I was a little bit surprised, but probably he believed that, okay, with the white pieces, he never runs any risk, and then the draw against Maxim is fine. But still, it was a little bit surprising for me that in a position where he had time, and it did look like a technically winning position, he was always choosing the most solid options.
And just an update, Peter, Jan Nepomniachtchi has drawn his game against Magnus Carlsen, which means that Magnus moves on to 6 points, while Jan Nepomniachtchi moves on to 6. Magnus moves on to 6.5, while Jan moves on to 6 points. So both these players are through to the quarterfinals.
Exactly. I mean, when I saw the pairing, it somehow made a lot of sense now that one of them was +2, other one was +1. Basically, a draw suited them both. Congratulations, both of them. I mean, we have been seeing that it was very, very difficult to qualify. All the other players are still dreaming of reaching these knockout stages. Those are the two big games, but let's not forget about Wesley Su against Daniel Dubov, because Daniel Dubov is in a situation where with a draw, he finishes on 50%, and that 50% is not sure if it's enough. So yes, knowing him, he's willing to gamble, he's willing to take risk. On the other hand, Wesley, seeing so far his strategy with white, he was not really taking too much risk. But here now, Dubov forces him to take risk. And Wesley Su is +1. So if Wesley would lose this game, then suddenly he's also in this mix of tie-break issues, which definitely he wants to avoid. I believe we're going to see a very, very big fight here between these two players. And actually the opening choice by Daniel Dubov indicates that, yeah, he was going for this bishop c5 Spanish. And Wesley also from his side played the most challenging way. I mean, going for a really big opening battle. And look at this, Wesley is still 16 minutes on his clock. And continues blitzing. I mean, continues blitzing, showing a lot of confidence. I'm pretty sure that Daniel is not that happy about this, because I don't recall Dubov really playing the bishop c5 Spanish, so I believe that he kind of felt like with bishop c5 Spanish, I'm gonna surprise my opponent. And all of a sudden, you know, the opponent goes to the most critical line and blitzes everything out, showing a lot of confidence. It's not an ideal situation.
Absolutely. With Wesley at 15 minutes, Daniel can't be too happy about his opening surprise, which has not really turned out to be much of a surprise. But the question is, how is Black continuing? Even just looking at the position, White has got these two bishops. He's got double pawns, but I think right now with the G file open, it also works for White. I like the move Rook G4 a lot. It's a rook lift that potentially it does stop Black's knight from jumping into F4. Also keeps the G file under control. So the Black knight is just tied down to H5. He goes G6. He's trying to find the same route via G7, trying to bring the knight to E6. But I do like White's position here, Peter, and I'm going to give that to the two bishops. And Black just doesn't feel coordinated enough.
Yeah, I mean, I was playing this line from the White pieces quite a lot. I mean, it was like my repertoire for 10, 15, yeah, basically 10 years. And I know that it's a very, very complex position, definitely not the new engines. I don't know what Lila gives about this position, but definitely is the most challenging way from White's side to challenge Black's bishop c5 Arhangelsk. And White plays the move f4. That's also one of the main ideas behind rook g4. You stop Black from entering with knight to f4. At the same time, you, thanks to this bishop on e3, which is very, very powerful, you prepare your ideas with f4. And if White gets the initiative and White coordinates his forces, I mean, let's just imagine White queen going to d3, maybe rook ag1, then White can eventually play for f5. Black immediately goes for rook b4. He has to target the d4 pawn. It's absolutely clear.
And how is White planning to defend this pawn? Because e5 is not possible. He shows it with rook a4.
Yeah, rook a4. That's the thematic way, basically. It often happens that White plays rook a4 already earlier. But here it's kind of natural that you trade off. Okay, Black is very solid, but what is very important that thanks to the bishop on c6, Black never has chance of activating the rook, because if that rook would be activated, then White's position could potentially be risky. But with this bishop on c6 guarding everything, one can really focus on the center and on the king side with all his forces. And okay, in the game, Nakamura versus Giri. Look at this. I mean, there are some developments, and I think very good developments for Hikaru. I mean, I'm even not claiming that he is so much better, but just that this position suits his tournament standing perfectly. He's not running any risks. He has chances to fight for advantage, and he doesn't give Black really any real chances for counterplay. And let's see, how did he get there?
And this knight on e6 and the knight on c6 reminds me of those two knights on f6 and h6, and yeah, usually not very good news.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Anish played this move h6, slightly provocative, c3, b5, and Hikaru says exactly, that's the point, e takes d5, not to play the e5 structure, because after e5, knight d7, things are completely out of control, and White has to try to mate Black on the king side, and Black is advancing on the queen side. That's a game that Black needs in a must-win situation. But after e d5, knight d5, a4, White breaks Black's structure, and in fact the move h6 turns out to be a big tempo loss here, because after b4, now with the pawn on c3, usually without the tempo, if we just go back, if Black plays b5, and White takes e d5, which is another line, knight takes d5, a4, b4, then White never has the chance of going c4 because the pawn is already on b4. But now that Black lost the tempo with h6, exactly in this line, h6, c3, b5, it doesn't really have, because after e d5, knight d5, a4, b4, White had the chance of using the momentum with c4, knight c7, knight b3. The knight is wonderfully placed on b3, hitting on the c5 pawn, so Black will be forced to go knight a6, and White will open up the center with d3. This is what we are seeing in the game. it's looking very promising for Hikaru. I don't know. The big question, how do you treat this position? Do you go knight b5, which however
Knight b5 looks very tempting.
Yeah, very tempting, but it does allow some knight e5 ideas somewhere.
But then you could take on a7, right? Because queen c4, you still have knight a5.
Yeah, well, if knight e5 you take on a7, I wanted to take on a7. Good or bad? Good or bad, I wanted, because okay, takes,
g2.
for example, you take, I give a check, you can go to h3 or you can play f3. You can play f3, yeah? And finally, my knight is also hanging.
Knight on e5 hangs, and if you take on c4, then just fall back with the bishop.
Yeah, that's already not what I want. So lot to calculate. I mean, definitely lot to calculate. And Hikaru chooses the more solid move, queen e2, basically giving up the hope of punishing black's play, but he doesn't need to. All he needs is stability, not to run any risk, keep everything under control, and force black to go crazy.
But now black could take on d4 and trade the bishop on g2 and try and put something on c5. You take with the bishop, king g2. Maybe start with queen c6 check.
Yeah, but this is exactly what I had in mind. Here I have the move queen f3. I think I have, yeah.
And after queen c4, your point is that you go rook c1?
Exactly, and I'm trapping your queen because queen d5 is not possible.
Very
because,
nice.
Yeah, this is... And okay, if I'm just trading the queens, then okay, I still, this pawn on a7 is weak, which compensates for the c4 weakness. White is definitely very, very solid. And we are seeing this. We are seeing this line.
So maybe not queen c6 here, but just, I don't know what's the right move here, Peter. Maybe rook d8 or maybe queen c7, just keeping the position.
Yeah, rook d8.
He's gone rook d8. This makes sense.
This makes sense also in order to have bishop f8 retreat after queen g4. Because otherwise it would be quite a primitive attack on the g7 pawn and there would be no good way of defending it. It's a very nice little move, rook d8. Yeah. On the other hand, okay, now this is what I was talking about, that white doesn't really have a clear advantage and he goes for queen f3. So even here with the rook on d8, Hikaru believes that this pawn on c4 is empty. Yeah? I mean, you cannot take. Why you cannot take exactly?
Because now rook c1, you do have queen d5 because the rook defends the queen and he's gone for it immediately. So is it because of knight a5? But knight a5, no, bishop on d4 is hanging and knight c6 doesn't get you anything.
Exactly, but usually Hikaru is very, very good in all this. So if he allows this, he definitely has something in mind.
So what happens after rook c1? You go queen d5.
Yes, I go queen d5
and where is the... Oh, maybe after taking, maybe rook c6 is the point, either before taking or after taking.
Yeah, this is of course incredible. I mean, it's lovely, but it's insane. I mean, why I'm saying insane, because the move queen f3 was almost blitzed out. Yeah, it's this rook c1, rook c6 idea is not something which is so easy to spot like in 2-3 seconds. And Hikaru played the move queen f3. Maybe he has foreseen everything. And I'm pretty sure that he has foreseen, because otherwise he would never give up this pawn just like that.
It really depends what he does now, because it could also it could perhaps be that he was heading for the g4 square and then just queen f3 happened. We've seen that happen before. And now rook c6. Okay, so queen trades and rook c6, keeping the same ideas because this knight is very uncomfortable on a6. You have to go rook d6 because knight b8 just looks super ugly. Do you have an alternative move except rook d6 here?
Yeah, but rook d6 is also very, very ugly because you can play a move like rook fc1.
Rook d8?
Sorry?
Rook a d8? Is that an option?
And okay, I just take on a7 and I'm clearly better and I even don't have to win the game. Yeah, it's like a dream scenario. Maybe actually Anish blundered this rook c6 idea because he grabbed on c4 way too early. If he would have not, I mean, if he would have seen rook c6, then he would have definitely preferred to play any other move. He didn't really have any other move, which was logical, so he took on c4. But I mean, this position is now looking very, very bad.
And he's gone knight b8, and it almost feels like white could just win on the spot. So rook c8, rook d8 has to be played. Rook c1, black has to take out the knight to d7, because you can't go rook c8, white follows it up with bishop e5 and you lose the piece. So does black have to make a move, has to make a move like knight d7 here? Ugly, but necessary?
Yeah, probably he has to, but then you can even take on a8 and go rook c7, and you are not winning because of rook d8. But I mean, okay, just take on a7 and you start pushing. You might be technically winning, and anyway, who cares, because you are already qualifying.
Do you think if this scenario happens on the board, Peter, and Hikaru gets this position, which looks really winning for him, do you think he's just going to call it safe, offer a draw, book his spot, or do you think he's going to play for more?
No, I think here you play already, because you are not, I mean, you can stop the game any moment you want, yeah? I mean, just make sure you are not making a mouse slip. That's the only thing. And with 9 minutes on the clock, you can make your moves very, very quietly.
Very quietly. And also the way the game progressed, it's very clear that queen f3 was very intentional, that pawn sacrifice, and no mouse slip heading for g4. Peter, now that this has clarified, it looks as if Hikaru is the one who's going to be calling the shots, playing for 2 results here clearly, which is bad news for the Dutch fans. But we also have Hari's game on. I think we should move on to that one, because he's our other player who's on the edge, and if he's able to win, but looking at the position, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's actually what's going on here.
Okay, I mean, it's a tricky position. Probably the position is about equal, and it doesn't look like, black really has winning chances, but the game is still on. Let's not forget there is a passer. Okay, it's still very far away. White has a lot of activity.
It's an extra pawn so far, at least for now.
Yeah, for the moment. Okay, this pawn on e4, I'm hardly counting it, because it can fall any moment, any second. White has all these ideas like bishop d5, attacking the rook on a8, attacking the pawn on e4, and if you play then a move like rook a8, it runs into some bishop c6 or rook c6 invasion. I mean, a lot of activity for white, so I would maybe just prefer to give this pawn back, stabilize the position, maybe with rook ac8, get some knight b6, try to somehow exchange the light square bishops, and imagine a scenario where I get some blockading knight on d5 and rely on my a pawn. Of course, it's very far-fetched. It's a dream, but let me dream a bit.
I'm on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that you have to give back this pawn. I mean, just the move rook a8 looks so ugly. I mean, rook c6 looks just too strong. But the point is that if you play the move rook a8, most probably I'm going to capture with the knight. Keep this bishop on d5, and Hari does go rook a8. I mean, he says that, okay, probably it's dangerous, but if I want to create any chances, then I have to hang on to my extra pawn. And maybe he wants to sacrifice an exchange, rook c6. The way I was calling about the exchange sacrifice was something like bishop b8, bishop b4, and then to play the move knight b6, hoping that after bishop takes f8, I take the light square bishops, and maybe with this material unbalanced situation, I have this desired something, some extra that I need to try to win. But white is by no means forced to fall into this provocation. I mean, after, for example, bishop b8, bishop b4, knight b6, I can most probably simply retreat my bishop. And if I can exchange if I can take the exchange by keeping the light square bishop, then it should be good for white.
I don't like the idea of allowing this bishop b4 move. So can black actually go back? Oh, if you go bishop e7, then you just pick up on e4, yeah?
Yeah, if you go bishop e7, then why did you go rook a8? Yeah, that was kind of my way of thinking.
And
because,
bishop a3, is bishop a3 an option here? Then rook a6.
yeah, it seems to run into some rook a6.
Difficult moment for Hari.
Yeah, Hari goes bishop e7. Okay, so he played the move bishop e7. What does he have in mind after knight takes e4? Knight e4, knight b6. No, knight takes e4 is not possible because of knight b6 winning material. Okay, this is very important. So,
you do have knight d6 here, right?
Yeah, but okay, this is already...
Bishop d7, yeah, it gets very messy. Knight d6, bishop d7 gets very messy as well.
Yeah,
so
and okay, yeah, he has taken with the bishop because the very principal line and the natural line bishop takes g5 just runs into this drawish variation. And because of this, then after bishop takes e4, probably you have to take on e4. And then white is just way too active. I mean, you will not have time to create any chances.
And yeah, you can see it. Hari knows that this is heading for a draw now. And in a must-win situation, that's heartbreaking for the Indian. And it looks like a forced line, no, Peter, with nowhere to go. I mean, you could go bishop g4, but 8-7 is hanging in lines there. After bishop g4, how does white react exactly?
Well, I mean, after bishop g4, if I'm too cynical, I just gonna play the move bishop f3. I don't like to be cynical because after bishop g4, I feel like I have all the rights to start playing for advantage. I don't know, but I mean, I have this move bishop f3 if I want.
Also getting an update, Peter, that Maxime has chances to qualify if he beats Alexander Grischuk and a few other results go his way. Let's just quickly look at this position because I think Hari's chances look very, very difficult to create anything now. So can Maxime do anything here?
Well, I mean, he is very, very tiny with better, but the material is so reduced that this is very, very drawish. On the other hand, okay, white has to decide. And he goes for this. He accepts the pawn down position, but he knows that this position is a theoretical draw. Now the question, will he go g4? Will he go g4 or will he go h4? I mean, which setup does he prefer? It's interesting. And look at this, Alexander down to 2 minutes. So yeah, probably Alexander was in this very uncomfortable situation. He didn't really know what he should be aiming at with the white pieces, and he got g3. This is a little bit surprising. Rook takes a2, so he will have to play the move rook a7. Okay, it's a theoretical draw, but
Peter, let's move on from this because again, just information coming from everywhere that Daniel Dubov has just made a big blunder and is now lost. What's going on?
Wow, lost, yeah, even.
I mean, look at the bar.
Yeah, I see the bar, but I mean, I also see the position. Yeah, rook e8.
Rook e8, rook e8.
e5, queen a8. Wow, this is amazing, yeah.
Let's just show that, Peter. Let's just show that line on the board that if you grab the bishop, queen a8, and just look at that, taking advantage of the back rank weakness, no way to defend against mate. Rook e8, what a beautiful little tactic there.
Yeah, and you remember what Sam Shankland told us, yeah? That, I mean, don't be fooled by Wesley being solid. I mean, whenever there is a tactical chance, he spots it immediately, and here we go, rook e8.
I was just about to say that this is what we keep talking about, Wesley, that, you know, he is pragmatic, he's solid, safety first, but when he gets that chance, he is a monster. He doesn't let go of it. And rook e8, what a beautiful spot.
Yeah, very, very nice. And we see this bishop on d5. I mean, this is an incredible monster with all the light squares, weakened light squares, black pawn on f6. So let's just see what was the blunder. I mean, okay, I would actually not call it a blunder. I feel like Wesley has been putting pressure on Daniel, and it's also not exactly Daniel's position because white is the one who is, okay, bishop g5. I mean, calling the action, and probably he just realized that, okay, f6, nothing is happening. And that's how he blundered because, okay, already here to spot rook e8, it's possible because he simply got fooled by the fact. I think that he simply believed that this f5 is probably just some gamble or something. But in fact, Wesley is not famous for gambling. If he already sacrifices something, then there is something to it. And yeah, rook e8, I mean, wonderful point. Yeah. And this will mean that Daniel Dubov is -1, but it's not over yet, yeah, because as we got the information, if Maxim wins, then also Alexander, Maxim, Daniel Dubov, I mean, also Harry, many people could be in contention with -1 score in the big tie.
It would be absolutely insane if Daniel, which looks like this is going to be a loss really soon for Daniel, if Maxime actually wins this, he has a big chance of making through. And of course, theoretically, position is a draw, but Alexander down to a minute and a half. And the reason is that Maxime actually beats Daniel and Sasha in the three-way tie. So if Maxime is able to win this game, despite having a terrible preliminary so far and being in the second last spot before this round, Maxime will make it through.
Yeah, incredible. But this case, it's also very important that Anish somehow has to set up a fortress, because Anish, if he makes a draw, and you know he can play knight d4 and put knight on b5. I know that the position looks ugly, but I mean it's not as lost as people would assume with being queen done. I mean that's kind of a half fortress-ish position, knight d4, and imagine that Anish is also in the tie, then I mean, who can calculate all these tie-break scenarios?
Well, then we can just sit back and enjoy, because we're going to be informed who's made it through and who's not. And yes, absolutely incredible, because this is not trivial, Peter, as you're pointing out, that knight goes to b5 and white needs to find a plan to break. One of the ideas that comes to mind is that you need to play with all your pieces, so you perhaps have to centralize your king, try and get f4, g4, f5 in, but not over, far from it.
No, in fact, I believe that it's almost like a draw. I mean, imagine that I put my pawn on g6, h5, king on g7, knight b5, knight d6. I'm controlling the f5 square. You can never push. Yeah, this is of course very important. Yeah, before black gets the chance of playing g6, king g7, white puts the queen on f8 and forces black to make a decision. I mean, you cannot really push the f-pawn, because then you weaken your structure. And after king g6, this king is a little bit feeling uncomfortable. But okay, if Anish suddenly realizes that all he needs to hold this and he has chances, then he gets a second life.
Peter, you know, I have to stop you, because just scintillating play by Wesley. So let's just go back to that position. I mean, I just have the board in front of me. Queen d7 has been played. Let's back up from rook e8 and take us through this amazing combination.
Yeah, we already discussed that white was threatening queen a8 and finishing the game along the 8th rank. So that in desperation, Daniel has played the move bishop a7. I mean, just to stop this queen a8, and then white bounces with queen d7. I mean, absolutely stunning. The justification that after queen d7, rook f8 check, king g7, rook g8 check is not check, it's a checkmate. And if you are not able to take the queen on d7, then basically the position collapses. First of all, white renews the threat of bringing the queen to the 8th rank. Also, the knight on f5 is hanging, so even something like rook f8, queen takes f5 right now is a threat just to win a piece. And black is completely boxed, completely paralyzed, cannot really put up any resistance.
Amazing. So white's queen is hanging and the bishop on g5 is hanging, but both these captures lose on the spot. Fg5 loses to queen d8 or queen c8, while queen d7 runs into rook f8, rook g8 mate. This is an absolute stunning sequence of move, Peter. Rook e8 and queen d7. Wesley winning hearts here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and it's also a very, very pleasing way of qualifying. Yeah, to win the last game, win in style, win in beautiful style. H6 is played. It's probably the only move which keeps the game going. But okay, now.
And how is white? Can white just take on f8, queen f8? Okay, so he's gone queen c8, and now after rook e8 has to be played. There's no other move for black.
Yeah, you have to take. I take.
And
you
bishop
have to go
e4.
King h7. I mean, bishop e4 still h takes
Queen g5. There's queen g5, Peter, as well.
Yeah, also queen g5. No, this is not.
This is not the way. So what is the idea?
Yeah, of course. Bishop takes f6 and queen g8 mate. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, this is just over, and he finds it, and he finds it instantly. What a brutal tactician Wesley So is. I mean, an incredible win. But you know, Peter, I have to say that means that Daniel Dubov not confirmed in his spot in the quarterfinals. We've seen some incredible play by Daniel. If after that d5 move and just the way he's been playing, he doesn't make it into the quarters, it's going to be a little bit of a heartbreak, because we know that he just makes every event very exciting. But this game, I think this is the game of maybe the preliminaries.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, Daniel has been involved in really many brilliant games. I mean, today he has lost 2. Also, that game against Jan Nepomniachtchi, remember, it was completely out of control. Brilliant, sacrifices everything, but finally he lost that game, and he also lost another one. This is what I was talking about, that Daniel is, due to his style, so dangerous with the white pieces. But I mean, all this gambling style and going for the maximum and trying to win every game, of course, with black, it's much harder. You are taking much more risks. Your opponent is much more in his comfort zone. And yeah, it's of course tragic for Daniel if he doesn't make it. But as we know, nothing is over yet, and all eyes should be on the game between Alexander Grischuk and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave, because in fact, Maxim has to win in order to create all this mess.
And it does look like he's created his chances, because how is white going to hold this position? King f3 now, and black just comes to pick up the pawns. How's he going to do it? Does he go rook f1 immediately?
Yeah, well, but rook f1, I mean, okay, if you go rook f1, I take.
Rook f2, you still have a check.
I have a check, yeah, and I'm just in time because king g2 runs into takes, rook f3, and then rook a4, and I eliminate the g4.
But Peter, maybe king h3 instead of rook f3. King h5? No, king g2, king h5.
Okay, but I also have the move king h4. I was already I was almost sure that this is a dead draw, and I was not concentrated. But yeah, first Maxim goes king g2. And after rook c2, he goes rook f1. Yeah, this case he wins a golden tempo.
This is super instructive, because you move away from that rook a3 check, which was not only giving a check but also defending the g3 pawn. And now white has to take on a2. We get the same position, but black's king is on g2. So rook a2, rook f2, rook a3. Black goes king h3 or rook f3 immediately, and that's how it. Wow. So what does that mean, Peter?
Well, that we have all this big mess, and we will have to wait for our producer to tell us something. And it means that Harry, with drawing the game, he was not in a must-win situation. He's also in the big tie with -1, and Anish needs to save his game to be also in this big tie.
Let's go straight to Anish's game, because that's the other big one. But I see that there's no fortress. White's pawn has advanced to b5. He's sacrificed a few pawns on the king side. Can black stop this b pawn?
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, finally, if, for example, Anish loses this game and then he realizes that if he would have just drawn this and Hikaru didn't mind the draw, because the draw would have guaranteed Hikaru a spot automatically, that would be, of course, very unpleasant for Anish. I mean, we all know that how ambitious Anish is, and he wants to qualify at all costs. And if he is out of this big tie, that would be, of course, a very big blow for him.
And the other player who's rooting for Hikaru to win against Anish is Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, because if Hikaru wins, that means Maxime books his spot in the quarterfinals, and Daniel Dubov as well. This is absolutely crazy. So knight f4, he's threatening rook b1 mate right now.
Wow. So we already said that poor Daniel, he lost all his chances, but he is still in the mix. He is still very much in the mix. Knight f4, king g1.
You know, Peter, after the seemingly high draw percentage in this preliminaries and the seemingly safe play by players in the middle, it looks like this was the explosive end that it was all coming down to. I mean, this is one for the books.
Yeah, but the point is that by drawing, you know, the players were getting more and more in danger. You know, the drawing stuff didn't lead them to any safety. It was actually putting the stakes higher and higher, and this is what we are witnessing, that, yeah, no one is safe. I mean, Levon is about to lose to David Anton, but actually it doesn't mean anything because 50% is a clear qualification spot right now, knowing all these results. I mean, Levon must be actually really relieved because, I mean, losing the last game with the white pieces, but still qualifying, then you kind of say, okay, I don't care, I qualified, but it could have hurt him a lot. And look at this. Okay, so King H2. Does Black somehow able to create something or no? He's going back with Knight to E6. He needs to sacrifice the knight for the pawn, but how do you do this? This is the B pawn. Because if he could get that, he could eliminate, I mean, somehow change. Let's just imagine the knight is changed for the B6 pawn, and you put somehow some fortress with rook on E6. You are able to bring your king back, then it's a fortress. But
wait, Peter, can white go queen e4 here? Because you can't take on b6. The e3 pawn is a queen e3 check and picks up the rook. And if you go anywhere else, then white can go, if you go rook b5, trying to keep the e5 pawn under control. Still don't have b7 though, because of knight d8.
No, you have, because then b8 queen. I mean, no, queen e4 is a brutal move, yeah.
Oh, that's super nice. That is amazing. Knight d8 and just b8, and then rook b8, queen e5 picks up the... So queen e4, how is Black fighting it then?
Yeah, probably queen e4 just finishes the game. I mean, it's a brutal move, yeah. Queen e4, rook takes b6, runs into queen e3 check, and otherwise you just push the pawn and you push till b8 and queen takes e5, will win the rook. Yeah.
And it's all forced. It's completely forced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, David Anton has won his game, but this is already not dramatic. Harry drew his game. This is the last game of the tournament in the preliminaries. Anish down to 23 seconds. Hikaru has more than 5 minutes. Yeah, it's no way Hikaru will not find queen e4.
Hikaru doesn't miss this stuff. He's played it, Peter. He's played it. He took his time and he found the quickest way to victory. Queen e4, just centralizing the queen. Again, Black can't take on b6 because of queen e3 check, picking up the rook. Rook b5 and b7 on the board, Peter. And as you pointed out, after knight d8, white goes on to queen and then wins the rook.
Exactly, yeah. And okay, if you go king f6, I just play queen c6 and queen goes to c8. Yeah, knight d8 on the board, you have to try, but of course you know that b8 is happening. b8 rook, very elegant, yeah, very elegant. b8 rook, and
very elegant or very brutal. I'm not sure, Peter.
Yeah.
And you can see Anish Giri, a big disappointment. And in fact, Anish perhaps only needed a draw after the way things turned out in the other games. Anish would have had a very big chance of qualification. Not really sure if it would have been enough, but big chances to qualify with a draw, a result that Hikaru would not have been disappointed with either. And we can see Anish not moving. He's very disappointed with the way things have gone. He was so close, Peter, so close till the very, very end. And we do know that Dubov is in as well. But for now, Peter, we are being joined by Hikaru. So let's bring him on and congratulate him. Hikaru, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, hi Hikaru. Congratulations. Yeah, it was dramatic final round.
Yeah, sorry, 1 second. I have to leave the Teams meeting. 1 second. Sorry, my camera's not working, so just give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. All right. So with that, we do have an update that Daniel Dubov is in as well, Peter, as well as Maxime. Definitely Maxime was also rooting for Hikaru in this last game because his standing in the quarters depended on Hikaru beating Anish. And I think we do have Hikaru with us now.
Yep, I'm here. Yeah.
Hikaru, that was an incredible final game, but also you had a really good run throughout. But despite that, in the very last final game, things was very uncertain still. Were you aware of the situation and the tournament standings? What were your feelings going into this last game with Anish?
Well, first of all, I assumed that I would be in even if I lost this game against Anish, just because of the fact that I had won 2 games, or I think I'd won 2 games. So I thought even if I lost, I should be in. But that being said, of course, there's no need to make it as dramatic as I did with this game against Magnus. But yeah, overall, I thought my play was pretty good. I was not very happy with the game against Magnus or this final game for that matter, but overall, it was pretty good.
Absolutely, and you've always been at the very top of the leaderboard. Never looked like you were in any real big trouble of making into the quarters. Now, Hikaru, this format that we've had here is being discussed everywhere. It's being discussed on chat, on social media. Just simply this approach that the players have had in the middle of playing safe, agreeing for draws, keeping their position solid. What's your take on this format? And did you also feel the most important thing was just to not take too many chances in the quarterfinals? In the preliminaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, because of the format with the qualification to the next tournament, that plays a very big role. Because if it's just a one-off tournament where if you're in the top 8, you make it through to the quarters, I think you might see people being a bit more aggressive. But I think the fact that it's a qualification to the next tournament as well plays a huge role in terms of the way that people have played. So I think perhaps that maybe that should have been changed before the event started, where it wasn't automatic qualification. Because when you have a situation like that where you're playing for not just one tournament, 2 tournaments at least, I think it lends itself to people being much more conservative. That being said, I think regardless, I probably still would have played the same way, even if it was just a one-off. Because the goal is to get into top 8, and then once you're there, you can kind of you take your chances if they come. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty pleased with how I've played throughout these events with the various formats.
And Hikaru, with the game starting at 6 a.m. for you, we were thinking this would be a challenge for Wesley as well as yourself with the timing. Did you feel that? How were you coping with that?
Well, I think first of all, I was very fortunate that in the first round of every day, I got I had 2 games which were pretty smooth. The game against Wesley, which was like just theory, and then the game today, where I basically won out of the opening. And the first day against Sasha, I also got a really good position. So I think in general, I was very fortunate that the first round of the day, I had pretty good positions on all 3 days. I think that played a role. But beyond that, I think I would say, as far as Wesley and myself are concerned, we're probably the only 2 chess players I can think of who are morning people for the most part. So I think that also helps us a lot in terms of having these early rounds.
Right. And now we're going to go into the knockout stages, which are a completely different format. It goes into match play. You've been playing the round robin stage. It's also a very different strategy. Just tell us a little bit about what is the big change that comes with these 2 different formats in the same event?
Well, I mean, I actually don't think it's too different. It's just that you end up playing against you play against the same player in a knockout format versus, say, playing someone different every single game in the qualification. So for the most part, I think the format is the same. You try to be solid, and if you have your opportunities or your chances, you try to take advantage and win when you get those good positions. So not a whole lot changes for me in general. So yeah, that's what it is.
All right, and finally, Hikaru, we do have news that you will be playing Levon in the quarters match. Your first reaction to that, first instincts to that?
Well, I don't think it really matters. I didn't really want to play Magnus in the first round, probably, and I think there was actually I don't know how realistic that was, but I think there certainly was a chance of that happening, at least going to this last round. So, how am I playing Levon? Did he lose or something?
Yes, he lost to David. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Because I thought he was somewhere in the middle. So to finish 7th, or actually, what am I? I'm 7th. I'm 2nd, right?
We're gonna get the standings up, but we do have confirmation. You are 3rd. You finished 3rd.
3rd. So who is 2nd?
Wesley 2nd.
Okay. Huh.
So
okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the tie breaks are, but at any rate,
It's direct encounters and then direct encounter and then number of wins.
Right. I guess actually that doesn't really matter whether I'm second or third in the general sense, because I think that means that in the semis, Wesley and I play, and Magnus plays whoever is number 4, I assume, assuming we all win, obviously. But I actually, now that I think about it, that doesn't change a whole lot. But yeah, playing Levon, I mean, I played him in I forget which event it was. I think it was Lindor's, if I remember correctly. It feels like a lifetime ago now. And it was a very close, very tense match. So it's going to be fun playing against Lev, because it feels like it's been a long time. So I'm just looking forward to playing him.
We're very excited to watch that matchup, and it's been a good birthday year so far. Good turning 33. You won the Speed Chess Championship. That was incredible to watch. Congratulations on that win as well, and a smooth qualification into this one. So well done, Hikaru and Peter. Your questions?
Yeah, well, I mean, congratulations, Hikaru, one more time. I mean, when I heard that you have to play at 6 a.m., I was wondering, how are you going to cope with it? But I mean, you have been really impressive. And you said that it helped that in the first games you were always in control. Can you just quickly tell us about today's first game against Anton? What was your preparation, or how did you get this great position?
Yeah, so I mean, it was very weird because if you go to Rook C8 on move 13, I mean, this is all I think known. But my guess is that when David Anton played Rook C8 here, he had only looked at knight takes C6 and not knight to D6. And I think the problem is this was a rapid game. So after knight to D6, Black is completely fine with Rook C7. But I think that he just missed it on knight takes C6, Rook takes C6, Bishop C6. There's knight B8. I think he simply missed this tactic. And if you don't see this tactic and you start using like 5-6 minutes, I think it's very easy to panic and then just look for some sort of tactical solution instead. And unfortunately, I just don't think there is a tactical solution. I think it's just down a pawn for and he has no compensation. So I suspect he had looked at Rook C8, but he hadn't looked at knight D6. And then in a rapid game, he probably looked for a couple of minutes. He's like Rook C7, knight C6, and he didn't see knight B8. So he started looking for some sort of tactical solution, and it all went horribly wrong.
Yeah, okay, now we understand. Yeah, because we missed this early action, and afterwards we just saw that you have a wonderful position. It should be winning, and you went on to win that very smoothly. Then okay, you had this tough loss to Magnus, which was completely unnecessary. I will not ask you there, and please.
No, but I mean, I do want to say one thing about that game, though, because basically I thought throughout, I mean, I was kind of shaky. It wasn't a great game, but really the problem is that if you keep going to the moment when I played Bishop C4 on move 46 after Rook B1, like the thing is that basically I have Bishop C6 here, which draws, but the problem was during the game, Bishop C4, Rook B7, A6 was my idea, and I thought I'd just bring the king over, and it's a very easy draw, and I just completely overlooked it after A6, there's Rook C7.
And so okay, so it was a one-move blunder, yeah?
Yeah, and so then this set me off a little bit, and then it's still probably a draw is correct play, but already I'm a little bit annoyed because I thought, I mean, I calculated A6 and just king E6 and easy draw. So, I mean, it was still a draw with some Bishop D3, I think, but yeah, I mean, this was very unnecessary, of course. But again, if I don't lose this game, I probably end up drawing Anish in a much different manner of speaking. So it's all relative.
Yeah, and then please take us through this game, because I felt like it was very, very interesting, knowing that you are one of the players who are very, very good in this King's Indian attack with the white pieces. On the other hand, you only needed a draw. So what was your take, that you wanted to play these ED5 structures and say, no, I don't want to checkmate you, my friend, now? I will keep that for later.
Yeah, I was pretty upset with the opening because, I mean, in a game where you just want to play normal chess, playing King's Indian attack is not really what you're hoping for, with all the pieces on the board and it being very complicated. So that's why I just took on D5, and I don't know if it's right, but I thought with this H6 move, instead of playing some kind of B5 right away, it seemed quite natural to go for this, and I thought it was just completely fine here, but I was pretty upset because when I played. I should not have played Bishop E3. I thought this was completely unnecessary, basically. Yeah, like here I should just go D4, and probably it's just very simplified, and I should never have any issues. But the problem is in the game after knight A6 D4, I mean, Bishop E3 looks natural. I think there's knight A5 here, and I was really hoping that Anish would not find it, because I think after knight A5, it's completely fine for Black. And pieces kind of stay on the board here as well, so I don't think there should ever be any issues.
Yeah, I can understand you because this knight on b3 is such a lovely piece. Yeah, if the opponent exchanges it, then yeah, things can get out of control. I mean, you are at least not in your complete comfort zone anymore.
Right, because I mean, my thought was when I played bishop e3 and d4, I thought, okay, it's simplifying, it's to take on d4, and then I mean, I should not ever lose this game. I mean, maybe Anish can play precisely and draw, but it becomes very simplified in a way where it's very hard to make any blunders and lose the game. So I was pretty annoyed when I saw knight a5, but Anish, fortunately, he didn't see that move. And then I think the rest was, I mean, it was just very, very dry. I mean, probably could have played it differently than he did. Maybe, yeah, like here after queen f3, I mean, he should probably just play knight c5, but again, it's going to lead to something where everything comes off. We trade it all off. I go b3 and rook d1, and I mean, or even I don't even have to take c5, even rook d1. And I mean, I think black can draw this, but Anish had to win the game to qualify, so this is not what you're going to aim for.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to praise you for this queen f3 because you kind of almost blitzed it out. And then we first thought, wow, what is this? It looks like after black played the move rook d8, he can grab the pawn on c4. And then we discovered this rook c1, rook c6 idea. I mean, it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure it was working, but I just assumed it had to be fine.
Yeah, and then, okay, you had complete domination, right?
Right, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, it's very difficult. And I mean, I actually misplayed this too, because after rook d8, I think bishop a7 is just winning the game. I think it's actually close to just lost. If I go bishop a7, because of bishop f6, I just go a5, bishop b2, a6, and I mean, I think it just wins on the spot.
Yeah, we had this on our board. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it looked very bad for black.
Yeah, but then I took it with the rook, and then after bishop f6, I mean, again, it's still probably better, but whether it's winning, I'm not sure. But I think this endgame actually was, I was kind of surprised by how Anish plays, because I think this actually should be a draw somewhere. Okay, so yeah, so you keep going. Yeah, I thought the way he played this was very good. King g8 takes, yeah, knight c6, all good. Yeah, knight d4, all good. Yeah, queen b8, king h7, queen f8. Yeah, and I mean, this position, I'm sure is a draw with correct play. I don't know if he should play f6, e5. Actually, I think just f6, e5, and rook b5. And I mean, it's very hard for me to believe that this isn't a fortress.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, but I mean, queen f8, we talked about this, that queen f8 is practically such an annoying move, yeah, because you have to make a decision which you don't want to do from the black side.
Right, exactly, yeah. So I mean, I think if black goes f6, e5, it should be a fortress. But again, you know, it's very hard at this point when you know your chances of qualifying are sort of gone. I mean, because Anish is never going to win this position. If he plays very precisely, he can probably make a draw. But considering the draw, it doesn't matter. I think it's very hard psychologically to keep trying to defend and play the best moves when you know that all the opportunity is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, it was a very smooth last round for you, I have to say, because you had everything under control. You got a dream opening. At the beginning, I also was wondering, yeah, this kings in the attack, it's not what you really dream of in your situation, but then 2 moves later, you got the dream, and then you had everything under control.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, it all worked out, so it's all good.
Congratulations, Hikaru, and we look forward to a big fight with Levon starting tomorrow. And thank you for your time and always being so gracious with interviews.
No problem. Have a good day.
Yeah,
guys.
thanks a lot and good luck. Bye.
Wow, Peter, that was just an epic final round. And let's take a look at our final standings after the preliminaries. And these are our top 8 who continue the race. Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Hikaru Nakamura, Jan Nepomniachtchi, Temur Rajabov, Levon Aronian, Maxime Vacher-Legrave, the big surprise after the last round, and Daniel Dubov. These 8 qualify. And Peter, looking at this, I think when we look at the left side of the screen, it all makes sense. But Maxime and Daniel really had us on the edge of our seat of whether they were going to make it in or not. Daniel losing that last round, but just surviving on tiebreak. And it's heartbreak for Pentala Harikrishna and Alexander Grischuk. a really good run for both these players, but they find themselves at the bottom of the tie breaks, and Anish Giri, David Anton finishing at the bottom of the table. And take a look at our matchups for the quarterfinals. It is going to be thrilling from the word go, Peter, because it's Magnus taking on Daniel Dubov. That's always a super exciting matchup. Their styles and their style of play is just fantastic to watch. Daniel plays fearlessly against the world champion, and just anything can happen. Magnus needs to be on his A game to be able to win this. And let's not forget, it is a 2-set match. So the players are going to play 2 sets over the course of 2 days, and only if that's a tie are we going to see a blitz playoff. It's Temur Rajabov versus Jan Nepomniachtchi. Another very interesting all of it, Peter. Look at this. Hikaru takes on Lev, and Maxime versus Wesley So.
Yeah, I mean, incredible pairings. You know me. I'm not someone who likes to speculate about the final outcome or even the outcome of a single game. But seeing all this qualification, I mean, if I have to name one person who is going to win this event, it's Maxime. I mean, just how on earth is he still in the tournament? I mean, I just cannot understand. I think he cannot understand himself. Not just that he was -2, but imagine the penultimate round against Temur Rajabov. He was, okay, I would not say completely lost, but I mean, it was much more lost than a draw. And then he survived. Then he won with the black pieces against Grischuk, and still it did not feel that this should be enough. And all the results went that way that he qualified. I mean, this is like a fairy tale. He has now all the chances after this.
You almost feel like Lady Luck is totally on your side. I mean, if after all these big, I wouldn't even call them hiccups. These are like mountains in the middle of the road on your path to making it to the quarterfinals, and you still find yourself in the mix. Really, anything can happen. And we also saw Daniel's interview with Kaya, where he said the good thing he likes about this format and this tournament is that even if one plays bad, they find themselves with the opportunity to play against the world champion. And those were some prophetic words, because he's taking on the world champion in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that will be an incredible pairing. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this tournament. And I have to say that, yeah, all this craziness in the tiebreak system, I'm very happy that Daniel Dubov qualified, because the reason why we also felt so heartbreak for Firuza after having that incredible tournament in the Skilling Open, but finally missing out on the tiebreak with all these wonderful games. And when we look back at these preliminaries, I mean, I think that we can all agree that the most creative games had been played by Daniel Dubov. Yeah, I don't say that he played the best chess, but definitely the most creative. And in this regard, I do believe that it's absolutely justified that he qualifies despite losing to the 2 games.
Absolutely. And also Peter Hikaru, I mean, what a phenomenal performance by him, waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning for the game and still making it so convincingly. He's also the only player who scored 3 wins, more than 2 wins in the entire field. We saw a very high draw percentage, but a very, very bloody final round, because as you pointed out, that left very little margin for the players, because it was such a close and an epic fight. And this was our final round result, as we saw 4 decisive games. And Magnus Jan was the only one that both players knew that a draw was enough. Hari Krishna tried as well, but in the end, Rajabov was able to keep it under control. Maxime, what a dream end to a tournament that he perhaps would have wanted to forget very quickly. Just because of the way the preliminaries had gone, he found himself at the bottom of the table every day of the preliminary, even until the very last round. We as commentators had decided and written him off, that there's very little chance of him making it through. But as they say in sports, it's not over until it's over. And the action is just getting hotter as we move on to the quarterfinals, which start tomorrow. It's a totally different format, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 2 sets, 2 days of play against the players, and these are our brackets. And only if it's a tie after set 2 are we going to see a playoff with blitz. And if that ends in a tie, then we will see an Armageddon. And just looking at these matchups, we know that we're headed for a very, very exciting quarterfinal, Peter. And just a big shout out to all our audience that has joined us on different platforms, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Chess24 chat. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for connecting us. And whether you're at home or watching it from your desktop or your phones, the browser that you want to use is Opera. Opera is the official partner of the Champions Chess Tour, and it's an innovative browser, and they are going to be supporting us throughout. And if you are enjoying the broadcast and you're enjoying all the chess action and you want to support the tour, do consider going premium. No better time than now, as there's a 40% off on Chess24 premium membership. You also get the main opportunity to be completely and in a wholesome way part of the Champions Chess Tour. There are going to be lots of events. I think just tonight there's the Banter Blitz, or maybe that's already over. I'm going to get a confirmation with Vidit. But we've got Banter Blitz hand and brain with all our participants throughout the course of the year, throughout the Champions Chess Tour. Not just that, as a premium member, you get to challenge these best players in the world, and you also get to be part of all these side events. Plus, you get access to the extensive library on Chess24. So you get to take your game to the next level as well. So do consider going premium to support the tour, to support everything that Chess24 does. And also, once again, a big shout out to Airthings, Peter. At the end of it, there might be something to this. Anish Giri, with the highest carbon dioxide level, didn't make it.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, but finally we have seen all these dramas in this Airthings Masters, just as we have seen in the Skilling Open. Yeah, it was kind of a calm second day, but yeah, this third day, all these dramas were just fantastic to witness. Yeah, all these things. I mean, I felt like, you know, Anish was getting in shape because his tweets got better and better each day. But somehow the mistakes that he made in the very first day, he couldn't really cope with. I mean, he was under this constant pressure. He tried very hard. I mean, kudos for Anish, because he was really trying very hard. But yeah, finally it just didn't work out for him.
He also had a very difficult day today, Peter. The matchups that he had on the final day, and despite that, keeping his chances alive till the very last game, absolutely has been a big fight. Talking about Airthings, who can forget Maxime's tweet before the start of today's day, where he mentioned trying to achieve the home run with the blue sign of validation. And indeed, while he had good air quality, he also managed to play all the correct moves that were required for him to make it into the quarterfinals. And with that, Peter, it's a wrap from us. We'll be seeing our audience and all you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. Good night.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you, Tania. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Hi, and a warm welcome to the Peek Inside video of the Fierce Nimzo Indian. My name is Maaike Keetman, and I'm super excited to present to you my first ever Chessable course. First, let me introduce myself. I'm a WFM from the Netherlands with a peak rating of around 2250 and 2 WIM norms. Some highlights of my chess career include a shared second place at the European Girls' Championship under 16, third places at the National Dutch Championship, and representing my country at the Baku Olympiads. I'm also working at Chessable actually. I'm a publishing manager here, which means I have a lot of experience on what the platform looks like, what users like and don't like, and I try to use all of that knowledge and incorporate it into this course. So your question is probably, why the Nimzo Indian? Well, I always really struggled with finding a good repertoire against 1D form. I want to fight. I want something that's reasonably sharp, where you can try to play for a win. I don't want to draw with black, and if you don't as well, then this is the course for you. What I like about the Nimzo Indian is that it's very flexible. You have a lot of different setups and all of them are very sound. It's one of the best openings against d4 in my opinion, and it's been tested time and time again at virtually all levels. Now, as I said, there are a lot of different setups, but in this course, I aim to usually put my pawns on b6 and d6. In modern literature and other video courses, there has been an emphasis on using setups with the move d5. However, I personally think those tend to go to slightly more equal / drawish positions, and I want to create some sort of imbalance in the position where you can fight for a win, and if you're the better player, you have very good chances to do so. Now, let's go into the specifics of this course. First of all, as you can see here, there's about 175,000 words of instruction, which is quite a lot. I find it really important to not only memorize the moves, but actually understand why you are playing something. In that case, when you are out of book, you're still fine because you know what to do, because you have understand all of the main ideas in a position. So that's why I included a lot of words, textual explanations, plans, and also a lot of chapters include strategic guides, summarizing the main ideas and explaining everything in great detail. There's also a quick starter guide. It has about 55 variations, and I highly recommend you study this at the start of the course. In this quick starter guide, you learn all of the key ideas, all of the key variations from the whole course, and then you can already start playing the opening in your games, whether it be online or on the board when that's possible again. And then once you encounter variation that you don't know yet, then you can look it up in the other chapters and study it in more detail. I also included alternative variations. Whenever you don't like a certain variation, or perhaps you just want to mix things up, make it harder for your opponent to prepare, you can check out one of the alternative lines and study those instead. And last but certainly not least, there's also 21 informational lines. These are mainly model games. Once again, I think it's very important to really understand what you're doing and not only learn the lines. So I included 13 model games where you can learn from top players, whether it be top grandmasters or top correspondence players, and teach you what to do after the opening has ended. I propose to go for a very exciting setup with c5, and in case white goes d5, then I propose to answer d6 and then b5. And the position can easily open up when you have a great attack on white's king, and it's very exciting, so this should be a lot of fun to study. After 4f3, we take a look at 4a3, which is called the semish variation, and this is the exact pawn structure that I talk about in the introduction chapter of the course as well. And one of the main ideas here is to make use of the fact that white has doubled pawns after taking on c3. That leaves only a few minor chapters. One of them is bishop d2, which is actually more venomous than it seems. However, it will often transpose to other lines in this course, most notably to the 4e3 chapter. That leaves 4g3, where I propose to immediately take on c3 with check. Most common is to go d5 against that variation. However, I think taking on c3 leads to very interesting positions, and black will aim to set up with d6, e5, and if he gets a chance, block the bishop on g2 with the move e4. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you check out my course. It was so much fun to make it, and I will hope you learn a lot from it. See you next time.
So fresh, so new. Freedom! It's all for you. All for you. Freedom! Keep your ear to the ground. Talking about freedom! It's the best show in town. Best show in town. Freedom!